Chapter 701. Snatching Spiritual Energy. Replace me, take me instead of my child. Sister Zhang cried out. Onlookers shook their heads. Sister Zhang had completely broken down, unable even to grasp the simplest truths. Sister Zhang, they said, the City Lord is trying to break through from the fragmented core stage to the infant stage. The spiritual energy he needs has already been collected from every household. What he lacks now is an insight that cannot be pinpointed and can only be obtained through the demon method. These children, untrained as they are closest to the innate body. After refining them, the City Lord will be more capable of grasping the Tao and becoming a true nascent soul person. How can you replace your child? Infected by Sister Zhang, the other children's parents also cried out against the blood sacrifice of their children. Sensing the turmoil, the City Lord's brows tightened as he used his lion's roar technique to quiet them. The roar of the lion was thunderous, leaving everyone ringing in their ears and swaying on the spot. The matter of blood sacrifice is a tradition of the Maple City, and you are ignorant of the overall situation, neglecting the teachings of your ancestors by putting your children first. It is your children's misfortune to be chosen. It's fate. You need to learn to accept fate. The words of the City Lord were very effective, and everyone calmed down, no longer creating a fuss. They knew the City Lord was right. The Deputy City Lord looked up at the sun and calculated the time. He said, City Lord, it's time for the blood sacrifice of the children. The City Lord nodded, his face revealing a cold, ruthless expression. Then let's begin. Wait, who's there? The City Lord frowned, his mind filled with murderous intent. This blood sacrifice ceremony had irritated him and was continually interrupted. Us. Both Qin Luan and Seven Kills Taoist said at the same time. The Seven Kills Taoist used his sword technique, erasing the fresh blood constituting the grand array with his sword qi, and cut the ropes binding the children. The surrounding crowd quickly scattered, leaving the two men plenty of room. Who are you? Seeing the two strangers, the City Lord didn't take action right away. He couldn't see through these two people's cultivation. It seemed they were also at the Golden Core stage. With two Golden Core stage cultivators obstructing, the blood sacrifice ceremony could not proceed. Cloud roaming cultivators from Jojo, Qin Luan. Seven Kills Taoist. Jojo, have any of you heard of this city? The City Lord asked the other four Golden Core cultivators. They all shook their heads. None had ever heard of a place called Jojo. Performing a blood sacrifice in broad daylight, is this your so-called tradition? Qin Luan asked harshly. Jojo had long been rid of such demonic traditions. In his mind, those who practiced the demonic arts always operated in the dark, unlike the blatant performance in the Xuanming continent. Ridiculous. The Seven Kills Taoist chimed in. Ridiculous. Do you think we want to perform the blood sacrifice? If it weren't necessary, who would choose such a path? The City Lord was incensed at their questioning. The spiritual energy is now scarce, with Crane City leading all the cultivation cities in snatching for it for survival. If I do not achieve the nascent soul stage, with no one at the nascent soul stage guarding our city, we will probably be conquered by people from the other cultivation cities tomorrow, and our spiritual energy will be plundered. Qin Luan and the Seven Kills Taoist were stunned. They hadn't considered this explanation. They looked towards the crowd and saw not gratitude in the eyes of the people, but hate. To prevent the City Lord from reaching the nascent soul stage was equivalent to inviting the people of the other cultivation cities to come and plunder without any defense. Qin Luan and the Seven Kills Taoist were somewhat at a loss. They had originally thought by stepping forward, they were upholding justice, standing against evil, and would be revered by all. Yet, it turned out that instead of winning admiration, they had incurred resentment. Suddenly, a hearty laugh echoed from the city wall. Haha, so you haven't started the blood sacrifice yet. A cultivator who radiated the fluctuations of the nascent soul stage stood on the city wall, looking at the forced halt of the blood sacrifice ceremony and laughing heartily. I heard that Maple Leaf City is planning to use a blood sacrifice ritual to raise a nascent soul cultivator, so I hurried over. I thought I was late, but it seems you are slower than I thought. It hasn't even started yet. The City Lord of Crane City. The City Lord of Maple Leaf City broke out in a cold sweat. The City Lord of Crane City was a veteran nascent soul cultivator. If he himself had just broken through to the nascent soul stage, then the City Lord of Crane City, unwilling to compete with a cultivator of the same stage, would leave. But now, with no nascent soul in the city, they will only be peacefully robbed of their spiritual energy. Take a good look at your city. After today, Maple Leaf City will become a normal human city. The City Lord of Crane City sneered. Maple Leaf City was a big fat piece of meat. It would be unjust not to rob them of their spiritual energy. Spiritual energy for those who can use it. The city lord of Crane City released the oppressive aura of the nascent soul, suppressing everyone, ready to set up a spirit gathering array to collect spiritual energy. A mere nascent soul cultivator, not much cultivation, yet such big talk. Qin Luan and 7 Kill Daoshi also sneered. They had made a mistake just now, and were trying to find a way to make up for it. Qin Luan and 7 Kill Daoshi released their cultivation, revealing unmistakably that they had reached the divine transformation stage. Down, Qin Luan used a thunder spell, striking the city lord of Crane City with thunder from the sky, causing him to fall from the city wall to the ground. Divine transformation stage, the city lord of Maple Leaf City exclaimed. It was the legendary divine transformation stage. 7 Kill Daoshi drew his sword and held it against the city lord of Crane City's neck. I heard it was your Crane City that has been plundering spiritual energy from other cities. The city lord of Crane City was even more shocked than the city lord of Maple Leaf City. When had 2 god transformation stage cultivators appeared in Xuanming continent? Seniors, forgive me, our Crane City had no other choice. Knowing that he was no match, the city lord Crane City knelt to beg for mercy, revealing the whole truth, fearing that a tremble of 7 Kill Daoshi's hand might behead him. The two of you have hidden your identities, possessing such inconspicuous talents. I greatly admire you. I thought that the only god transformation stage cultivator in Xuanming continent was true monarch Juju. The plundering of spiritual energy by Crane City is also due to true monarch Juju. True monarch Juju's life is coming to an end. He hopes to break through to the body integration realm and needs a large amount of spiritual energy to do so. He didn't have enough spiritual energy, so he ordered cultivation cities with nascent soul cultivators to surrender a certain quota of spiritual energy. If the quota is not met, he will annihilate us. We at Crane City also lacked spiritual energy. For survival, we had to rob the cultivation cities that only had golden core period cultivators. Qin Luan and 7 Kill Daoshi exchanged glances, then tentatively asked, there's no one behind true monarch Juju, right? There won't be another body integration realm cultivator popping out to command true monarch Juju or something. The city lord of Crane City hastily said, no, definitely not. Where does Xuanming continent get so much spiritual energy to develop 2 body integration realm experts? Where is true monarch Juju? Upon receiving a location and direction from the city lord of Crane City, Qin Luan and 7 Kill Daoshi flew off in that direction. Before leaving, 7 Kill Daoshi left several sword pills for Maple Leaf City to protect themselves. Contained within each pill was sword chi, with a single sword chi capable of killing a nascent soul cultivator. Like receiving a treasure, the city lord of Maple Leaf City quickly expressed his gratitude. The citizens, seeing that they no longer needed to sacrifice their children, also knelt and thanked them. The two then found the declining true monarch Juju. True monarch Juju was in a cultivation city, demanding spiritual energy. When they did not give enough, true monarch Juju lost his temper, ready to destroy the city and kill its people. The two arrived just in time, engaging in a heated fight with true monarch Juju. How could true monarch Juju, at the end of his lifespan, possibly withstand the two, both in their prime and with extraordinary talents, potential candidates for human emperor? Without any surprises, Qin Luan, armed with Thunder Light, and 7 Kill Daoshi, releasing Sword Chi, combined forces and killed true monarch Juju. However, their moods did not improve. Although true monarch Juju was dead, there were still many nascent soul cultivators on the verge of life and death on the Xuanming continent. These people, in order to break through, would also commit atrocities against humanity. The disaster in Xuanming continent stems from the lack of spiritual energy, a dilemma that the two of us cannot solve. We should record this incident and report it to the Imperial Palace and let Mr. Zhang decide. Chapter 702, Common Sense. Imperial Palace, where the Tribulation Crossers and Immortals of the 9 states gathered. Zhang Li, Bai Hongtu, Yu Yin, Immortal Elder Everlasting, Commander Lu, Sword Monarch, Li Er, and Old Dragon King. The meeting was convened not by Zhang Li, but by Commander Lu. Once everyone arrived, Lu dived right into the topic after a brief opening remark. We've been exploring the 10,000 realms for exactly a year now. During this year, we've achieved a lot. We've connected with other worlds, uncovered the hidden schemes left by the Immortal Realm, suggested they establish order, and thanks to the combined efforts of the Brahma Tower and the Lord of Samsara, inter-realm space channels are no longer quantity limited, and connection among the 10,000 realms is growing stronger. Worlds where technology coexists with the cultivation practice are becoming increasingly common, benefiting countless people. The cultivators of the 9 states have also gained experience and grown through exploring the world. There are not a few who have had realizations and made breakthroughs. This is the positive side. However, we've also encountered many problems along the way, and the most significant problem is the cultivation world. This is a report that Qin Luan and Daozi 7 Kills just submitted. Take a look. The world that Qin Luan and Daozi 7 Kills explored is called Xuanming World, which bears typical significance. Xuanming World isn't an exceptional case. There are many cultivation worlds with an insufficient amount of spiritual energy and problems relating to resource plundering. When representatives from the 9 states tried to dissuade them, they boldly insisted that the strong should enjoy resources and the weak should contribute resources, claiming it to be the natural order. As a cultivator, one should do everything possible to become stronger. Any hesitations should be obliterated. Many cultivation worlds share the same underlying logic: if resources are not enough, then snatch. Others began perusing the information. The order in those cultivation worlds was a complete mess as described in the documents, filled with murder, thievery, and wickedness. If the black tide comes, none of these worlds will escape. Familiar reports. History is repeating itself, Immortal Elder Everlasting said. The 9 states was the same 9,000 years ago, focused solely on snatching. If you don't snatch, others will snatch from you. Once others get resources and become stronger, you'll be the next one to die. Under such circumstances, people behaved as if they were insane. This is not limited to the 9 states, the immortal realm is the same. So, do immortals have no desires or obsessions? Of course not. There are ranks among the immortals. To become stronger, you need more immortal power. For example, the immortal emperor resides in pure sky, where the immortal power is abundant. Why? Because the amount of immortal power symbolizes status and rank. Elder Everlasting's words left everyone silent. They had more or less an idea of what the previous 9 states was like, and it's drastically different from the current state. Why are the technological worlds always pursuing productivity? The higher the productivity, the more abundant the resources, the fewer societal conflicts which will be beneficial for the construction of a stable world. The pursuit of stability is human nature. Only, resource scarcity forces people to regain stability via the pursuit of resources. With this in mind, it seems like Zhang, the human emperor, never plundered from anyone from the beginning until now. Li Er muttered, thinking of Zhang Li, the oddball. The former emperor once told Li Er about Zhang Li, saying that Zhang Li was a peculiar boy. Despite his low background, with no powerful entities backing him up, Zhang Li had never worried about the lack of spiritual energy from the qi cultivation stage all the way up to becoming the human emperor. Zhang Li had always been a straightforward cultivator. This was bizarre. It would be understandable if Zhang Li hailed from the Dao sect, the Tianyuan royal family, or the great Zhou dynasty family, as they were rich in resources. But the problem is that Zhang Li was an ordinary person. How could it be possible that he never worried about resources? Historically, all powerful persons from humble beginnings had stolen from others during their childhood. Nobody mentioned these past deeds when they grew up since they were considered stains. No mentions didn't imply non-existence, but Zhang Li had no such history. It showed that from the outset, Zhang Li's thoughts were different from others, which was also what the old emperor admired about Zhang Li. What Li Er pondered was, could the Zhang family of Qingcheng have nurtured such a mindset? Or was Zhang Li a natural-born saint? Li Er usually dismissed this question after contemplating it, but this time he tried to think more deeply. If there aren't enough resources, why don't we give these worlds some spiritual energy? Sword Monarch suggested, as the 9 states were rich in spiritual energy. Yu Yin shook his head. Do you know how many worlds this involves? To stop these worlds from disputing over the spiritual energy, we'd have to drain more than half of the 9 states' spiritual energy. Do you still want the cultivators of the 9 states to practice cultivation? Sword Monarch, realizing that was a terrible idea, kept quiet. He didn't have the brain to solve significant problems and decided to stay quiet. What about the Hall Master? What do you think? Commander Lu noticed that from the moment he saw the report, Zhang Li looked concerned and hadn't said a word. Zhang Li lifted his head and asked in a puzzled tone, why would the scramble for spiritual energy occur? Don't they all believe that spiritual energy can be created from nothing? Everyone burst into laughter at his comment, especially Bai Hongtu, who laughed heartily. Zhang Li, do you think everyone is like you, capable of producing spiritual energy on their own? Isn't it? Zhang Li still frowned. The rowdy meeting suddenly fell silent. Everyone looked at each other, realizing something wasn't right with Zhang Li. Zhang Li didn't seem to be lying. He genuinely believed that everyone could create something from nothing. Li Er suddenly asked, Zhang, the human emperor, there's something I've always been curious about. Go ahead. The old emperor told me that you've never worried about the lack of spiritual energy since you started from Zhang family of Qingcheng. Why is that? Without hesitation, Zhang Li replied, why worry about spiritual energy? I believe spiritual energy can be created. Li Er paused briefly, failing to grasp Zhang Li's meaning. Yu Yin faintly began to understand the root cause of their divergence in perspectives with Zhang Li and continued asking, so how can we exactly break through the Mahayana realm? Again, Zhang Li replied, by using infinite spiritual energy to impact the realm, triggering the Mahayana realm naturally. Impossible. Each time Bai Hongtu heard Zhang Li describe how to break through the Mahayana realm, he was bewildered. This time, he got angry and slammed his hand on the table. Bai Hongtu assumed that the Mahayana realm was like the Transcendence Tribulation stage, unspeakable. If mentioned, one would never break through the Mahayana realm. Therefore, he had always thought Zhang Li was joking. Now, he realized that Zhang Li was serious. There was a significant problem here. Bai Hongtu stopped bottling up his doubts and asked directly, how can we possibly achieve infinite spiritual energy? There's a rule of energy conservation in the 9 rules. Zhang Li counter-questioned, if energy truly conserves, where did the destructive energy of the black tide go? How were parallel worlds born? This stumped Bai Hongtu. Indeed, if energy conserved, the black tide wouldn't be able to destroy the world. If energy conserved, where did the energy to create parallel worlds come from? The emergence of parallel worlds was equivalent to doubling the energy directly. That's not right, you didn't know about the black tide and parallel worlds before, why would you think that energy does not conserve? Zhang Li was taken aback, wait, have you always believed that energy does conserve? Bai Hongtu finally understood where their divergence lay. Zhang Li had always believed that energy doesn't conserve, and he thought others shared his belief. Even a child knew the common knowledge that energy conserves. In the past, they never discussed this issue because they both considered it a common sense, just like 1 + 1 = 2. Who would waste time discussing such a matter? But Zhang Li's common sense was different from everyone else's from the very beginning. Chapter 703, 12th Report of Zhou Tian's World. Under the pitch-black night sky, 3 figures traversed through the ruins, occasionally bending down to gently stroke the edges of the destroyed architecture with their thumbs. Luo Ying pushed aside a collapsed building, revealing the tragic sight hidden beneath. At the time of the catastrophe, skyscrapers were toppled by the shockwaves before the crowds nestled inside even had a chance to dodge, were mercilessly crushed to death by the falling buildings, with not even a complete corpse left behind. 200 years had passed since then, the bodies had long turned to bones. Through these skeletal remains, the trio seemed to see the look of terror on the faces of these people from hundreds of years ago at the moment of their deaths. Alas, the 3 sighed, documenting what they observed. Zhou Tian's World Number 12 report, currently on an unknown planet, no survivors have been found. This world belongs to the star system of Zhou Tian's world. An initial survey reveals the presence of civilizations on hundreds of planets, most of which do not possess space migration technology, while a minority can carry out space migration. The unknown planet we are currently on has traces of resource extraction occurring on nearby planets, however no large-scale colonization activity is apparent. This unknown planet does not possess space migration technology. Timeflow comparison, 500 years have passed in the Zhou world, while 260 years here in Zhou Tian's world. The results of time flow testing are blurry, with an error of 10%, for reference only. This planet seems to have been destroyed, no survivors have been found, and the cause of destruction is still unknown. After documenting observations temporarily, Luo Ying looked up at the broken beams and crumbling walls, faintly making out the once resplendent unknown planet. What a tragedy, the technology level of this planet seems to be similar to ours in the sealed ink world. After comparing the world coordinates and names announced by the ruler of the earth, the world of the zombies was renamed as Sealed Ink World. But it seems that even the language is not unified on this planet. Luo Zhu pointed to the signpost that had fallen on the side of the street. The signboard had 6 languages on it. This indicates that this planet had at least 6 countries. Not just 6 countries. Ji Kongkong pointed to the map on the ground. The map had already weathered away and its original features were unreadable, but she saw across time to the real map that marked dozens of countries, big and small. Luo Ying and his sister Luo Zhu, along with Ji Kongkong, all chose to explore the worlds of Zhou Tian. The trio formed a strong bond in the 10,000 words world and cooperated very well. They had already visited 11 planets in Zhou Tian's world, and the one they were currently on was the 12th one. The trio were the earliest candidates for the human emperor who passed the test of the 10,000 words world. Having explored the 10,000 realms for a year, they were highly experienced and considered among the pioneers. During this year, they had seen worlds filled with prosperity yet steeped in danger, worlds that appeared to be thriving but were in fact on the brink of collapse, as well as worlds that were on the verge of destruction or had already been destroyed. The reputation of the trio was particularly prominent among the exploratory cultivators of the 10,000 realms. They could unravel the conspiracies of the immortal realms of many worlds on their own without seeking help in JoJo, which was indeed rare. However, the worlds on the brink of extinction or those that had been destroyed exceeded their capabilities, and they could only report to the Imperial Palace. They had seen many destroyed worlds and should have gotten used to such sights. However, the destruction of a world meant that thousands of years of history were rendered meaningless, and tens or even hundreds of billions of lives were lost. Therefore, every time they visited a new world and witnessed its tragic end, they couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sadness. These are the traces of a weapons-induced devastation, Luo Ying observed for a while before stating with certainty. This scene was all too familiar. He had witnessed such ruins for a whole decade during the Doomsday Era. In the early phase of the apocalypse, the military launched large-scale operations to wipe out the zombies, deploying many new weapons in the most densely populated areas. The city we are in right now, it's just like back then, leveled by weaponry. But there are no zombies here, so who were their enemies? Luo Zhu expressed her confusion. Can you tell us anything, friend Kong Kong? Luo Ying asked. For things like this, Ji Kong Kong was their best bet. I saw weapons being launched here. The people launching the weapons were the military from other countries. Ji Kong Kong had seen missiles and other weapons landing and exploding in this city. She followed the trajectory of the launched missiles and realized that they were intercontinental missiles fired by other countries. No, it's not just this city that was attacked, a war broke out throughout the entire world. In the process of backtracking the origin of the missile, Ji Kong Kong was above a vast ocean and saw countless missiles and other weapons fly past her, traveling thousands of miles to their destinations, causing countless civilian casualties, with no opportunity to mourn their own deaths. Chaos, everything was in chaos. Ji Kong Kong couldn't figure out who started the conflict by launching the weapons first. The three left the city and moved quickly to other countries. The conditions in the other countries were very similar to what they had just witnessed, barren lands plowed by weapons, not a single intact building could be found. They also came across many peculiar buildings, quite distinctive in design, likely to be the iconic structures of the countries they represented. Sadly, under the merciless bombardment, nothing could be preserved. This planet is purely a technological civilization, there are no traces of cultivation. Luo Ying remarked. He had seen many skeletons, those from every country and every age group. It was clear from the remains that none of these people had practiced cultivation. Without cultivation, their mortal bodies could not withstand the attacks of the bombardments. The defect of a technological world. They put too much emphasis on the power of weapons, forgetting their own vulnerability, as if the strength of their weapons represents their own strength. Technological civilizations are like sitting on a powder keg, the stronger the weapon, the higher the stack of explosives. When a spark ignites the explosives, the entire civilization collapses under the barrage of weapons. Whether a civilization survives in the weapon fire or vanishes into nothingness depends on their destiny. With the continuous exploration of other worlds by JoJo, a discipline named Study of 10,000 Realms emerged, which specialized in studying the differences among various worlds and the reasons behind these differences. Some scholars of the 10,000 Realms proposed a viewpoint that a competent civilization should at least have basic survival capabilities, that is, a balance between offense and defense. As it develops offensive tools, it should also develop corresponding defensive measures. The individuals in a cultivation world could achieve this, but from the perspective of the entire world, few could accomplish this balance. This viewpoint gained a certain level of acceptance in JoJo. Look at this, it appears to be a dictionary. Luo Zhu lifted up a heavy book with a spell. The book had become so fragile after 200 years that it would crumble at the slightest touch, it needed a spell to preserve it. Understanding the language is key to figuring out what happened on this planet. Using their divine sense, the trio scanned the dictionary and summarized linguistic patterns, quickly learning one of the 6 mainstream languages. A flat map of this planet was attached to the back of the dictionary, with the name of the planet labeled at the top. Blue Star Map. It seems this planet is called the Blue Star. Luo Ying bent down and wrote a sentence in the notebook. Report of Zhou Tian's World Number 12, Currently on the Blue Star, no survivors have been found yet. Chapter 704. A familiar name. Look, there are survivors. Luo Zhu pointed to a stronghold 40 miles away, overjoyed. Survivors mean this planet hasn't been totally annihilated yet, it's on the brink of destruction, there's a high probability it can be salvaged, and the civilization can continue. The settlement was a small city, it was messy and devoid of any aesthetic appeal. It appeared dilapidated, but every building style had its purpose. The primary function of the settlement's buildings was accommodating people and durability, comfort was a secondary concern. Everyone here was a soldier. There was a clear division of tasks. Some were responsible for exploring remnants of the old world, some handled agriculture to ensure a steady food supply, while others taught to pass on the knowledge of civilization. When the three of them arrived, the alarm sounded. The inhabitants of the settlement put down their tasks, armed themselves, and aimed their weapons at the trio. Those who were outside hurried back upon hearing the sound. "We mean no harm," Luo Ying tried to explain, but the inhabitants disregarded their explanation and inquired fiercely. "Why is the radiation level on you so high? Approaching us with such high radiation levels, do you want to kill us all?" The trio was taken aback. They hadn't expected the alarms were set off because of the radiation they carried, not their arrival. Luo Ying was the first to comprehend and murmured, "It might be because we just visited a place where nuclear weapons or something similar had exploded, which has caused us to become irradiated. Although we aren't affected by radiation, for these survivors, it's lethal." Statistics showed that many worlds faced issues of dealing with radiation after a nuclear war. Therefore, the Tao sect assigned people to visit these sites and develop new spells. After chanting a brief incantation, the trio quickly eliminated the radiation on them. The alarm quieted down. However, the survivors were still wary of the trio. In this desolate wasteland, the appearance of three outsiders carrying radiation, and the abrupt silencing of the alarms, were too strange. "Don't come any closer. I'll shoot if you do," a survivor warned the three while holding a weapon produced 200 years ago. It was debatable whether the weapon could even fire. With a look of despair, Luo Ying raised his hands and shouted, "We are peace-loving traders who just want to sell goods. Outsiders, you're not welcome here." The survivors were still skeptical and kept their weapons ready, seeming to be on the verge of attacking. Who had ever heard of traders who came with empty hands? Seeing that they were not cooperative, and unwilling to initiate conflicts, the trio decided to move on and find other survivors elsewhere. The reason they hadn't discovered any survivors previously was that they had been visiting the areas most devastated by war where radiation levels far exceeded the norm. It was impossible for anyone to have survived there. The survivors lived in clean zones. Luo Ying updated the record. Zhou Tian's World Report number 12, currently located in Blue Star, survivors found. The trio quickly found a new settlement of survivors, grabbed their bags, disguised themselves as wandering traders, and began to inquire about the past conditions. Unfortunately, the cultural discontinuities on Blue Star were so dramatic that even the oldest people could only relate what they had heard from their elders about why Blue Star became what it is now, and there were too many ambiguities in their accounts. After visiting over 10 survivor settlements, the trio found that the stories were all similar. Historical events were distant memories for the inhabitants, who could no longer recall how the war had started or ended. Reliance on memory will get us nowhere. We need to find documentation. Luo Ying's opinion was shared by his sister and Ji Kongkong. They found dictionaries of 6 languages and learned the main languages of Blue Star. Normal places have already been ruined by war, making it hard to find materials. We should head to the ministries of defense, war command centers, or air raid shelter of each country to find clues. After learning the language, they finally understood the purpose of the buildings. Libraries, schools, hospitals, courts, government buildings, landmarks of various cities. Knowing their functions was useless as all of these places had turned into ruins, void of any value. The trio moved swiftly on the surface of Blue Star, traveling to various places to uncover the truth of the past. After days of effort, gathering information from everywhere, together with Ji Kongkong's time Dao, the trio finally pieced together the last part of the puzzle in an air raid shelter and understood the cause of the war. More than 200 years ago, there were 5 powerful nations on Blue Star that steered the course of the world. However, there were conflicts among these 5 countries. Their opinions often didn't align, and covert and overt conflict was common. A mysterious figure emerged around this time who claimed to be from the immortal realm and said he was there to aid Blue Star. This figure helped each country technologically, enabling them to strengthen their weaponry to the point where a single country could cover half of Blue Star with firepower. Checks by the Time Dao verified that this mysterious figure was Du Yi. In the face of the truth, each of the 5 nations held their own. Every nation sought to surpass the others in terms of national defense, precipitating a global arms race. Du Yi left each nation with abundant data. As long as they invested in it, more knowledge was attainable from the data, allowing for updates and upgrades of their weapons. All the nations, consequently, cut down on their space exploration and shifted their focus to national defense. Ultimately, the weaponry of each nation reached its peak, with each country's arsenal capable of turning Blue Star into a sea of fire, reducing the surface into a wasteland, a horror far surpassing any disaster. Du Yi reappeared. He went to one of the countries and activated a nuclear weapon. Several nuclear bombs were launched at other nations, not targeting their capital cities, but the homes of their leaders. This was the spark which ignited the powder keg. A chain reaction began, other nations responded by retaliating, and the whole world was quickly engulfed in a sea of fire. Each nation had established air raid shelters to protect their citizens. So, when the warning sounded at the start of the war, more than half of the population hid in the shelters and managed to survive. But that was just the beginning of the war. Once hatred takes root, it's difficult to eradicate. This most brutal war in history lasted for a full decade, draining all nations' arsenals. The war ended 200 years ago, marking the dusk of civilization on Blue Star. After the survivors managed to live, they faced numerous difficulties. Radiation restricted their movement, they fought each other for resources and the chance to live in clean zones, decreasing the already low number of survivors. The war destroyed material resources, but it also destroyed heritage. We know more about the culture of Blue Star than the survivors themselves. The matter of Du Yi was not recorded in any files, his actions were witnessed through Time Dao. The trio was not surprised that Du Yi was involved. His traces were found in the first 11 worlds of Zhou Tian's world. The methods Du Yi employed this time were mentioned in other cultivators' reports. After discovering the truth, the trio remained silent for a long while, a feeling of helplessness suffocating them. What do you think is the current state of Blue Star civilization, on the verge of destruction, or is it already destroyed? Luo Ying's voice was bitter. Ji Kongkong's mood was also somber. That's not for us to determine. Our mission here is to document the facts and report them to the Imperial Palace. Let's go. We'll check out other areas. I'll use my Time Dao to restore as much of Blue Star's civilization as possible. The vacated area above the air raid shelter was once an orphanage. The head of the orphanage kept a small booklet that recorded the stories of all the orphans at the orphanage. Luo Zhu accidentally came across a familiar name in the booklet. Zhang Li. The record indicated that he had died 260 years ago. Chapter 705. Zhang Li's past. Come and take a look, this person's name is really interesting, he shares the same name with Mr. Zhang. Luo Zhu called to his brother and Ji Kongkong, sweeping away her previous gloominess. That's true, this person is also named Zhang Li. Luo Ying and Ji Kongkong were drawn over, and like Luo Zhu, they were all intrigued by this person with the same name. It's rare to see someone with the same name and surname as Uncle Zhang. Shall we take a look at this person's history? Ji Kongkong suggested. Due to the presence of Zhang Li, out of respect, parents in JoJo would not name their child as Zhang Li. In today's JoJo, only one person is named Zhang Li. This Zhang Li, he grew up in this orphanage. Using his divine sense, Ji Kongkong looked back in time and shared the images he saw with the Luo siblings. At the entrance of the orphanage, a young couple holding a basket, secretly placed the basket at the door, gently knocked on the door, and quickly left. The director of the orphanage was an elderly woman. She opened the door to find a lone basket on the ground with no one in sight. She sighed. Inside the basket was a peacefully sleeping baby. The director sighed. This was not the first time she had encountered such a situation. Young couples, in the heat of passion, give birth to a child, but due to various reasons, they cannot raise the child. They leave the child at the doorsteps of orphanages, hospitals and other places, secretly slipping away as if nothing has happened. If they don't have the ability, why would they put this child through the suffering of this world? The director picked up the baby and noticed a note in the child's hand. On it was written, Zhang Li. So, this child's name is Zhang Li. Time flew by, and 10 years passed. The child named Zhang Li grew up in the orphanage. He lived a good childhood with his brothers and sisters. Zhang Li, you did great on your final exams this time, but your homeroom teacher called me again. The director called Zhang Li into her room with a resigned look on her face. Zhang Li just finished playing soccer, his whole body was filthy. He washed his face and asked excitedly, did the teacher praise me again? The director pointed to her own expression. Does it look like I'm here to praise you? The teacher told me, you're thinking too divergently. For example, this problem, the sum of Xiaoming and his mother's age this year is 38 years old. 5 years later, his mother is 16 years older than Xiaoming. How old is Xiaoming this year? Yes, you calculated Xiaoming is 11 years old this year, that's correct. But why did you have to calculate his mother's age as well? Fine, you figured that his mother is 27 this year, which isn't wrong either. Zhang Li nodded. Following the director's remark, he said quite reasonably, then I wrote that Xiaoming was born when his mother was 16 years old. Early marriage and childbirth is in violation of the marriage law, so this isn't wrong either. The director rubbed her temples in agony, somewhat regretting introducing Zhang Li to law so early. The director's initial intention was to worry that Zhang Li, abandoned by his parents, would become solitary, so she explained to him about law, trying to assure him that the world is beautiful and that law can punish the bad guys. What's surprising is that Zhang Li didn't develop a solitary personality, in fact just the opposite, he was the most outgoing among his peers. At the same time, he also developed an interest in law. It should have been a good thing, but the director would always receive complaints from the homeroom teacher, stating that Zhang Li thinks too actively and always goes off on tangents, even when he answers questions correctly. The director tried to convince Zhang Li not to do so every time, but always failed. Alright, knowing and understanding the law is not a bad thing either, let it be. The director waved her hand, asking Zhang Li to go back and continue playing soccer. Watching the lively running figure of Zhang Li, the director shook her head helplessly, revealing a relieved smile. Zhang Li performed exceptionally well and was admitted to a good university, naturally choosing law as his major. There are many courses in law, including criminal law, civil law, international law, jurisprudence, and so on. Zhang Li's first class was jurisprudence. Jurisprudence, the principle of law, is a subject with a strong theoretical flavor. The jurisprudence professor took the podium and calmly threw out a question. Class, do you know what the law seeks? What does the law seek? This question stirred up discussion among the freshmen. Most of them chose law not because they liked it, but because they didn't know what to choose when selecting a major. They thought law has a good career prospects, so they chose it. But they didn't understand law at all. Although Zhang Li had studied law, what he studied was statutory law, he never considered why law came into existence and what was the underlying significance. Yes, what exactly does law pursue? Seeing the freshman didn't know the answer to his question, the professor of jurisprudence smiled slightly. This was very normal, and he soon revealed the answer. What the law seeks is eternal justice and fairness. Since ancient times, the law has been continuously changing, precisely because people's understanding of justice and fairness keeps changing. Even today, we still don't have a definite answer to what justice and fairness truly mean. Perhaps in your future life, you may find the answer. Upon hearing this, Zhang Li was stunned. The professor continued, abusing authority for personal gain, pocketing public funds, nepotism, these are far from acts of justice. As people of the law, I hope that when you step into your respective positions in the future, you will not forget the original intention of the law and your original aspirations. After the opening speech, the professor began the formal lecture. In ancient times, people imagined a possibility, hoping that the philosopher king would appear at the pinnacle of power, who could transform the real society into an ideal society, but this is only a hypothesis. The philosopher king has never appeared. University's 4 years ended, and Zhang Li, captivated by jurisprudence, chose to continue his education, being admitted to the jurisprudence master's and doctoral programs. During his master's and doctoral programs, he studied various law theories from ancient and modern times, both domestic and foreign. He had a deep understanding of any theory. His doctoral advisor praised his learning abilities and believed he would certainly become an authority in the field of jurisprudence. After Zhang Li passed his thesis defense, his doctoral advisor hoped he would stay at the university to teach, but he wanted to put theory into practice and chose to work, advocating justice and fairness. His advisor initially wanted to discourage him, but after exchanging a few words with Zhang Li, he found that Zhang Li had a firm determination that couldn't be swayed. The advisor sighed and said, "You seem haphazard and mellow, but in fact, you have strong principles and sharp edges. No one can shake you." "Thank you for the compliment, Professor," Zhang Li said, scratching his head modestly. "I'm not complimenting you. This personality of yours can backfire in your professional life. You should turn a blind eye to some things. Model what others do, don't stand out, and don't split hairs on right and wrong. You might be right, but it doesn't mean you always have to do what's right." It can hinder your progress. Zhang Li was puzzled. Why? Right is right, and wrong is wrong. Why shouldn't we make it clear? If I know this is right, of course, I would do it. The advisor shook his head and said, you will understand in time. As Zhang Li wished, he started working, becoming a legal worker. Chapter 706. Energy is infinite. Zhang Li, it's time to clock off, let's go out for dinner. This is a good opportunity to toast to the leaders. The one inviting Zhang Li is his university classmate, Shang Liang, who directly joined the workforce after graduation and has met with success. Zhang Li's qualification is considerably high, and he quickly surpassed Shang Liang in terms of both position and level after he started his career. Zhang Li detached his gaze from the case files, responding, no, I've just received some new evidence materials. I need to carefully review them tonight as this case concerns the interests of the parties involved, there's no room for any laxity. I haven't finished reading this month's law journal yet. Toasting the leaders could possibly lead to promotion and a raise. Shang Liang continued to persuade Zhang Li, as Zhang Li's promotion will leave his position open for him. Zhang Li asked perplexedly, is promotion or a raise not based on performance, but on alcohol tolerance? Seeing Zhang Li's reaction, Shang Liang had no choice but to attend the dinner himself. Zhang Li, the higher-ups have spoken. This case involves someone with a special relationship, take care of it. Shang Liang winked and signaled at Zhang Li. A good performance in this case might leave a good impression on the higher-ups, and promotion would be just around the corner. Sure, let the higher-ups amend the law while they're at it. Zhang Li joked, I will handle it in accordance with what the law stipulates. Shang Liang immediately fell silent. Zhang Li then said, Shang Liang, you haven't accepted any benefits from them, have you? Concerned whether Zhang Li might be recording him, Shang Liang vigorously shook his head. How could I? Good, don't forget that the law seeks fairness and justice, not promotion and raises. Zhang Li kindly reminded. He had been working for several years, the more he experienced, the more he realized that theory is one thing, but practice seems to show little regard for it. Zhang Li looked at Shang Liang, reminiscing about the times when they attended classes together, making every effort to study the law. Back then, Shang Liang was always keen on being a legal worker who maintained fairness and justice. After 10 years of not seeing each other, Shang Liang had undergone tremendous changes. The Shang Liang who once dreamt big with him was no longer there. Shang Liang looked at Zhang Li with a complex look. He had been working for 10 years and had seen many young people enter society with passion and idealism. However, those people quickly admitted defeat to reality and became people like himself. Only Zhang Li remained unchanged, stubborn like a kid fresh out of school, not at all fearful of the cruel lessons of society. It was truly enviable. He couldn't do it. He had a wife and children, and a mortgage to pay. He wanted to make his life better. He couldn't measure up to Zhang Li. After a few more years, Zhang Li began to interfere with many interests and crossed paths with many people. He was framed and taken to court. The evidence provided by the other party was solid, capable of proving Zhang Li's guilt. Despite Zhang Li being innocent all along, the professor agreed to be Zhang Li's defense lawyer. He arrived at the detention center and saw Zhang Li in prisoner's clothing. He looked serious. He never expected that after all these years, Zhang Li's character still hadn't changed and his principles hadn't wavered an inch. Zhang Li, you're stronger than me. I used to be like you, wanting to establish justice in society when I started out. But I quickly realized that I was defeated by reality and ran back to school to focus on theoretical research. Zhang Li responded expressionlessly, Professor, I am right. Seeing the usually cheerful Zhang Li in his current state, the professor couldn't bear it. How might all this affect Zhang Li? No matter, today was a good time to clear things up and let Zhang Li see the reality. The professor sighed, I know you're right, but this society doesn't see right or wrong, you and society are incompatible. Do you think the law is always pursuing fairness and justice? Why? Because it never reaches it. After all these years, I've come to understand that fairness and justice can't ever be achieved. I wrote a paper about it but never dared to publish it or discuss it with anyone. I want to talk to you about it now. Zhang Li quietly listened to the professor. Humans are profit-seeking creatures, but benefits are limited, while human desires are infinite. You also know that energy is conserved, and so are benefits. Humans are a bottomless pit, bounded benefits can never fill it. As long as the human heart is not content, there will never be a day of fairness and justice. Zhang Li contemplated, if energy is infinite and benefits are infinite, can fairness and justice be achieved? Seeing the change in Zhang Li's expression, the professor decided not to discuss further on this topic. Instead, he said, "Don't worry, although the other party's evidence is solid, we are also prepared here, we can definitely save you." Zhang Li fell into deep thought, continually mumbling words like energy, conservation, and non-conservation. In court, the professor surprisingly proved that Zhang Li had a mental illness and was having an episode during the crime. The judge knew this must be the professor utilizing some connections, but he had no evidence. According to the rules, mental illness is not considered a crime. The judge hit the gavel. "Zhang Li, not guilty, but treatment in a mental hospital is required." The professor came to the mental hospital, intending to rescue Zhang Li, but the words from the chief doctor left him greatly shocked. This patient is indeed have a mental disorder. The professor looked at Zhang Li chatting and laughing with the nurses, his usual smile restored. He asked angrily, how could he be ill? The chief doctor explained helplessly, he seems just like a normal person. He also believes that he is not ill, but only when he does not discuss issues related to energy. Energy issue. He believes that energy is infinite. So what? Who talks about whether energy is conserved or not in their leisure time? The professor gradually realized something was off, this wasn't what they had agreed upon before. The chief doctor received orders from above and insisted on not releasing him. Even the professor's connections weren't of any use here. The professor tried everything, but was unable to take Zhang Li out. In the end, he had no choice but to give up on this plan and decided to visit Zhang Li regularly. Zhang Li's position was vacant, and Shang Liang took over Zhang Li's work. The old dean brought the children to visit Zhang Li. Seeing Zhang Li in the mental hospital, he deeply regretted letting him study law. The old dean cried, "If only you hadn't chosen law studies." Zhang Li put down the Shenxia novel he was reading, smiled, and shook his head, "I am grateful that I chose law studies." Zhang Li liked to read Shenxia novels in his spare time. And now, he had a lot of spare time. The higher-ups felt that Zhang Li knew too much and that he was always a threat, so they resorted to a plan to kill Zhang Li. Zhang Li's expression faded, and he gradually lost consciousness. His lips trembled, muttering, "It's such a pity, I haven't been able to realize my dream in the end." The will of all sentient beings in the land found Zhang Li's soul, guiding him to the land and asked him to become the human emperor, to fight against the heavenly demon from outside, and save the land. Later, Du Yi started an arms race that led to World War. The blue planet was covered in artillery fire day after day. Chapter 707, Going Home. This person really had a tragic life, I hope he will have a better reincarnation in the underworld. An enormous sense of sorrow enveloped the trio as they finished watching Zhang Li's life, leaving them feeling a profound sense of frustration and helplessness. Luo Ying sighed. Just like the fact that 8/10 of the world has already been destroyed, the incident on the Blue Star, and the affair of Zhang Li, who shares the same name Mr. Zhang, are all past events that we are powerless to change. What we can do is just record these events and report them truthfully to the Imperial Palace. Should this person's incident also be recorded? Luo Zhu asked. Luo Ying shook his head. No need, the investigation report cannot detail individual cases, because then we would need to write about everyone's past. Each time Luo Ying documented the destruction of a world, he would feel relieved that he possessed a fragment of the heavenly stairway to ascendancy, enabling him to turn back time, grateful for meeting Mr. Zhang who saved the world and revived his own planet. Yet, few were as fortunate as he was. Such a pity Mr. Kong Kong, as before, please restore the civilization this world once had, engrave it on the jade pendant, and store it in the spirit coffin hall of the Imperial Palace. The Spirit Coffin Hall was a newly established place dedicated to preserving the culture of civilizations on the brink of destruction or already destroyed. Alright, you've always believed that energy is conserved. In the Imperial Palace, Zhang Li looked at everyone with a puzzled expression. The astonishment on everyone's faces was even greater than Zhang Li's. Isn't conservation of energy normal? Just as Zhang Li wanted to say something, a human Emperor Palace guard softly approached him from behind, whispering a few words in his ears and handing him a stack of papers. Zhang Li sighed. Luo Ying, Luo Zhu, and Ji Kongkong have returned from a world called Zhou Tian's world. The situation there is terrible. Some planets are on the verge of destruction, while others have been destroyed. All because of Du Yi. This is the exploration report of Zhou Tian's world. Zhang Li made several copies of the report and distributed them among the others. Everyone attentively perused the Zhou Tian's world report in silence, including Zhang Li. Suddenly, Zhang Li paused while reading the 12th report from Zhou Tian's world, freezing in place. What's wrong? Commander Lu noticed that something was off with Zhang Li. Nothing, I just need some fresh air. Zhang Li stood up and exited the imperial palace as soon as he finished his sentence. Everyone exchanged confused looks. In the 500 years they've known Zhang Li, they've never seen him act like this. Bai Hongtu also stood up, intending to check on Zhang Li but was held back by Yu Yin. Let him have some alone time. Zhang Li teleported to the blue star and began to walk silently. He treaded unevenly across the ruins of the blue star, measuring the land with his footsteps, recalling the past with his gaze, as if time had rewound. Zhang Li tried to locate the familiar sights of his past, but over 200 years had passed, time had erased everything, and the bombings had destroyed all traces of his memories. I once asked Mother Earth where the blue star is, but she told me she needed to know which world the blue star belonged to. Only today did I learn that the world I once lived in was called Zhou Tian's world. Zhang Li visited the orphanage. The old director had passed away long ago. Before the war arrived, the orphanage had already been handed over to a new director. The new director was one of Zhang Li's old friends from his playful days. Everyone has left, indeed. Zhang Li voiced out his melancholy. Zhang Li went underneath a large tree. When he was younger, he used to climb up the tree to read, and the old director would climb the ladder, with a feather duster in his hand, to chase him down, warning him about the danger of his actions. The tree was long withered, leaving only half of its early self. Zhang Li casually spotted a fragment of a stone stele on the ground, with the Chinese character for Li engraved on it. Wind return, flame rekindle, restore. Zhang Li cast a spell to restore the stone stele. The surrounding fragments of stone floated in midair and gathered towards the stone inscribed with Li, forming a complete stele. Zhang Li's hands trembled as he cast the spell. This was the tombstone erected by the old director for him. He seemed to see a scene of 260 years ago, where the old director was crying, friends were weeping. Everyone was weeping, except for him who was already dead. Underneath the tombstone was Zhang Li's body, but he had no intention of looking. He stood up the tombstone straight and walked straight out of the orphanage without looking back. Zhang Li then visited his old university, where he had studied for 10 years. He had learned from his law professor the aim of the law, and from Professor Kong, he had deepened his understanding of the law. Zhang Li wanted to visit Professor Kong, but his office had long been replaced by another after he had retired. It was also destroyed during the war, leaving nothing behind. Zhang Li took out a bottle of spirit wine and poured it on the ground. Professor Kong, I am back. The knowledge you've imparted, I have been practicing till today. Professor Kong, goodbye. Zhang Li went to his old workplace. This place had been spared from the bombings and was the most intact. Here, he found the records of his former friend, Shang Liang. If he hadn't shielded Shang Liang would have had a smooth and successful career only to be incarcerated at the end. All that Shang Liang had worked for in his life disappeared when he was imprisoned, like an elusive mirage that could not be grasped. He died alone in prison, disregarded by all. As for the higher-ups who framed him, Zhang Li had no desire to see. He had no resentment, in fact, he pitied them. They were ignorant of the vastness of the world, confined to the small plot of land they called the Blue Star, grappling in their intrigue and plots. What did they gain? Wealth and money couldn't be taken to the grave, and society hadn't progressed due to their existence. To be born is to be empty, and to die is to be empty. When I died, at least I had friends who cried for me. What about you? Aside from family, who would shed genuine tears for you? Zhang Li traveled many places. He cast spells to clear radiation, he sought survivors and conversed in his old world's language, he located the historic and cultural relics extolled in history, and thought about the passages he learned during middle and high school. I can't return. There really were survivors who spoke the language of his previous life, but they knew nothing about the contents of his conversation. Talk of Mount Tai's sacrificial rituals, the journey to the west, internet slang, none of it made sense to them. The scenic landscapes praised by scholars in the past, the nation that a heroic emperor fought for his entire life, none of them could be found now. All has turned to dust. The blue star in Zhang Li's memory could now only be found in the jade pendant engraved by Ji Kongkong. Du Yi, your death was too easy. Zhang Li muttered. While he was indeed framed and killed, that was merely his personal vendetta. The blue star had nothing to do with his grudges. His past was certainly tragic, but the beautiful elements of the blue star far outweighed his sorrow. The blue star was his home, and it should not have suffered such a fate. Speaking of which, how did I die? Where did I go after the court's judgment? Zhang Li stood lost on the ruins, as the biting cold wind blew past him. He suddenly realized that he was missing a piece of his memory. Chapter 708. The conditions for breaking through the Mahayana realm. How did I die? Where was I before I died? Zhang Li found that he could clearly remember the details of his past life, but the things that happened just before his death were quite fuzzy. What happened? Zhang Li used a spell to reconstruct the verdict, which stated he was undergoing treatment in a mental hospital. Do I have a mental illness? Following the verdict, Zhang Li arrived at this mental hospital. Walking through the corridors and browsing the medical records, the long-sealed memories flowed into his mind like seawater. Zhang Li finally stopped in front of an ordinary hospital bed. He had died on this very bed. Absurd, ludicrous, tragic, a complex rush emotional descriptions flooded his mind, too deep for words. The corners of Zhang Li's mouth gradually curved up, eventually breaking into a hearty laugh. I remember now, I was sick. Zhang Li covered his face, laughing to the sky with a mixture of sorrow and helplessness in his voice. So, I was sick. I had a mental illness. His laughter echoed through the abandoned mental hospital, scaring crows into a flurry of misplaced wing flaps. How utterly absurd, how ludicrous. Turns out I was the only one who believed that energy was infinite. Zhang Li's laughter gradually subsided, and then he squatted on the ground, silent as a clay sculpture, no longer laughing. No wonder when I was explaining to Bai Hongtu and the others on how to break through to the Mahayana realm, it felt simple to me but they didn't understand. It was due to the discrepancy in our understanding. I believed that the energy was limitless, but Bai Hongtu and the others believed that energy was conserved. My illness made me assume others also believed that energy wasn't conserved, hence why I never fought for resources and couldn't understand those who did. My illness also made me lose my memories of the mental hospital and made me believe I was just an ordinary person. Only revisiting this place has awakened my memory. All the past anomalies were now clear to Zhang Li. As he unraveled the threads of analysis, his eyes began to brighten, regaining his usual brilliance. This affair came as no significant blow to Zhang Li. If something like this could defeat him, the Heart Devil Tribulation wouldn't have found him so difficult to break. The Heart Devil Tribulation was aware of Zhang Li's hidden secrets and also knew that this was no tribulation for him, incapable of defeating him. Zhang Li's firm Tao heart left the Heart Devil Tribulation helpless. But do I really have an illness? In Zhang Li's palm, a stream of spiritual energy appeared, clearly defying the rule of energy conservation. The spiritual energy of the 9 states couldn't evolve Zhang Li into the Mahayana realm. The truth is, when practicing Mahayana, all the energy comes from him. Therefore, Zhang Li could cultivate anytime and anywhere. His cultivation didn't rely on the concentration of spiritual energy in the environment. Perhaps there are 2 conditions to break through to the Mahayana realm. One is to believe in the existence of Mahayana, and the other is to believe that energy isn't conserved. Then everything makes sense. Before, I didn't know that Mahayana was fabricated by Longevity Immortal. After crossing to the 9 states, everyone was skeptical about the existence of Mahayana, but I believed without a doubt. I also believed that energy isn't conserved. Fulfilling these 2 points, breaking into Mahayana was naturally achieved. The will of all living beings doesn't know how to break into the Mahayana realm, but knows that I can save the 9 states, so it dragged me to the 9 states. Zhang Li stood up, his spirit revitalized, looking like a whole new person. The past is the past. What I need to do now is to establish order, fight against the black tide, and if my luck is good, go directly to the place of possibility to solve the problem at the root. But why if I believe that energy isn't conserved, energy becomes not conserved? Zhang Li frowned, as he couldn't figure out this problem. Never mind, the immortal will give me an answer. Zhang Li put this question behind his mind, returned to the 9 states, and ordered the Imperial Palace to carry out a rescue operation in Zhou Tian's world. I have already issued this order, Leader Lu said in an emotionless tone. Upon closer inspection, one could see a hint of resentment in his expression. The details of carrying out a rescue operation for a world on the brink of destruction were written clearly in the emergency rescue procedure of the 10,000 realms. Everyone in the Imperial Palace knew about it except for Zhang Li. Zhang Li gave an awkward laugh. What happened? You look much happier now than before, Yu Yin joked unusually. When Zhang Li found out about the whereabouts of Blue Star in Zhou Tian's world, his expression was so depressing that it scared everyone. No one had ever seen Zhang Li with such a terrifying expression. I have made great progress. Come, old Bai, Yu Yin, both of you come here. Zhang Li mysteriously called Bai Hongtu and Yu Yin out. It was back at the old place, Piled Thunder Mountain. What is it that's so mysterious? Bai Hongtu was puzzled. I'm going to tell you how to break through the Mahayana realm. Zhang Li said this with a proud expression on his face. Bai Hongtu, Yu Yin, let's go back. Bai Hongtu beckons Yu Yin to leave. Anyway, Zhongli always has the same few lines every time he talks about breaking through the Mahayana realm. Zhongli stopped Bai Hongtu, making him sit down obediently. Yu Yin sat there from beginning to end, without any intentions of leaving. I guarantee this time you will succeed. Zhongli promised earnestly. You swear on a sugar-coated gourd. That's too cruel, I swear on the Ascension tribulation. Zhongli showed a difficult expression. Enough, both of you stop fooling around, hurry up and continue. Yu Yin didn't come here to listen to a free crosstalk performance. She had been listening for 500 years. Zhongli explained the two conditions for breaking through the Mahayana realm. After listening, Bai Hongtu said, believing in the existence of the Mahayana realm, that's easy. With your existence as an example, who wouldn't believe in the Mahayana realm? But to ask us to believe that energy does not conserve, that's hard. For the past 500 years, we have always believed that energy conserves. Now you suddenly tell us that as long as we believe energy does not conserve, we can achieve it. If thinking can simply get us what we want, wouldn't I have succeeded in defeating you long ago? Zhongli patiently said, defeating me is impossible, that's unrealistic, but the non-conservation of energy is real. Bai Hongtu, do you even hear what you are saying? Having said that, Bai Hongtu and Yu Yin still trusted Zhongli's judgment. Experience told them that Zhongli's judgments were always accurate as long as they didn't involve love. They tried to overthrow their previous knowledge, reshape their worldview, and believe that energy does not conserve. Mahayana realm, break. Bai Hongtu pointed at the sky, with an imposing manner, as if he was going to overturn the heavens and the earth. But then nothing happened, and piled Thunder Mountain was cloudless for thousands of miles. Unlike Bai Hongtu who shouted it out loud, Yu Yin quietly called for the breakthrough to the Mahayana realm in her heart. And then again, nothing happened. Zhongli frowned, not knowing where the problem lied. Yu Yin suddenly asked, when did you realize that energy does not conserve? Believing in the non-conservation of energy is one thing, actually achieving it is another. During their youth, Yu Yin didn't notice that Zhongli could generate energy out of thin air. Zhongli was taken aback, and said, it was after I reached the peak of the Transcendence Tribulation stage. When the power of the people's wishes was added to me, I realized the non-conservation of energy and then broke through the Mahayana realm. Does breaking through the Mahayana realm require the power of the people's wishes? Yu Yin nodded. Very possibly, but only the human emperor can enjoy the power of the people's wishes, and neither of us are the human emperor. Zhongli revealed a smile. In terms of the power of wishes, he studied deeper than Yu Yin. The condition to use the power of the people's wishes is not to become the human emperor, but to have a heart for the world. Yu Yin suddenly understood, and then asked, the power of the people's wishes needs to accumulate, do we need to wait for a while? Zhongli stretched out a finger and gently shook it. You've forgotten, I've cast a bronze cauldron specifically for storing the power of the people's wishes, and left it for the next human emperor. After breaking through the Mahayana realm, I have not used the power of wishes. The power of wishes stored in the cauldron for now is equivalent to 300 years' worth. Chapter 709. There are still differences in strength in the Mahayana realm. The power of collective will of living beings is immeasurable, and requires specially designed vessels to harness it. To this end, Zhongli specifically gathered heavenly and earthly treasures from all over the 9 provinces, asking the Tao sect's artifact refinement peak to create it. The bronze cauldron was placed in the center of the imperial palace, and the deep blue water formed by the concentration of collective will within the cauldron was akin to the essence of the earth's pulse. This was the purest form of collective will, with a history stretching back 300 years, and it had never been used before. Now, Zhongli planned to let his 2 good friends use it. In recent years, the 9 provinces had established ties with other worlds, and through numerous exchanges, the Earth's pulse had been further strengthened in this process. Zhongli had inspected the Earth's pulse located directly beneath the imperial palace, and it had grown several times stronger than when he first ascended to his position as human emperor. I never expected I would have a day when I'd use the collective will, Bai Hongtu said with an excited rub of his hands as he looked at the full cauldron of collective will. Yu Yin showed a rare hint of a smile at the sight of the collective will. Being able to use the collective will meant that they both fulfilled the conditions to become the human emperor. If it wasn't for Zhongli, the 72nd human emperor would have been chosen from among them. Even if they couldn't become the human emperor, they would be content to have been recognized by the collective will. What will the next human emperor do after we use it? Bai Hongtu hadn't forgotten the original purpose of the bronze cauldron. Zhongli rolled his eyes. This is a volume that has taken 300 years to accumulate. If you can use it all, I will immediately relinquish my throne and become the ruler of the underworld in Queen Hutu's stead, freeing up the position of human emperor for you. Yu Yin added. The ancient emperor once told me, the collective will can only temporarily elevate one's physical body to the level of an earth immortal, and using more collective will would be useless. The importance of collective will lies not in the quantity, but in the quality. Bai Hongtu and Yu Yin sat cross-legged, floating in the air, their hands flipping in intricate gestures to form the seal of the emperor. Zhang Li released his control of the collective will. The calm water of collective will in the cauldron was stirred, rippling with activity. Rise, Bai Hongtu turned his palms outward, raising both hands as if supporting the heavens. The collective will morphed into mist, floating toward the two, expanding everything from their flesh and bones to their spirits. The power of their physical bodies gradually increased until it finally broke through the threshold, surpassing the limits of ordinary mortals and becoming an earth immortal's body, entering the domain of immortality. Bai Hongtu and Yu Yin succumbed to a splendid state, in which their bodies felt light as a feather, their sensory perceptions no longer confined to the flesh but transformed into a certain symbol, spreading across the 9 provinces and other worlds. They felt as if they had merged with the Earth's pulse, wherever the Earth's pulse was, they were there. Noisy voices started ringing in their ears. Upon careful listening, they could distinguish various sounds. Some people were praying for the emperor's blessing, some were diligently cultivating, some were hoping their mothers and daughters were safe, some were wishing for successful research. These were the hopes of living beings. Seeing his 2 friends appearing as though they had lost gravity, their expressions shifting between satisfaction and pain, Zhang Li could roughly guess what stage they were at. He had felt a similar way when he first ascended to the throne and used the power of collective will. The hopes of the living beings echoing in your ears, and you wishing to fulfill all their wishes, yet feeling pain at your own insufficiency, unable to respond to the hopes of the creatures. The process of hearing the voices of the living beings lasts only for a short moment and soon returns to normal. Sure enough, the expressions of Bai Hongtu and Yu Yin eased, they began to truly adapt to the power of collective will. Both of them opened their eyes simultaneously, their eyes clear as a brook. Their eyes were like a mirror. What you saw when you looked into their eyes was not Bai Hongtu and Yu Yin, but your own reflection. Mahayana Realm, Breakthrough. As Bai Hongtu casually spoke, Piled Thunder Mountain was enveloped in billowing clouds, and the fierce wind howled. A nameless pressure spread from Piled Thunder Mountain throughout the entire 9 provinces, from common people to immortals, all felt this fluctuation. Is someone about to ascend to immortality? Sword Monarch was startled. The elderly Dragon King rose vigorously. 300 years ago, he had been awakened by this fluctuation while in slumber in the East Sea. The elderly Dragon King lowered his voice, confirming his answer from the shocked looks on everyone's faces. No, it should be the Mahayana realm. The immortal elder nodded. This feels the same as when Zhang Li broke through to the Mahayana realm. Except for Sword Monarch, everyone present had witnessed this scene 300 years ago. This feeling was like somebody ascending to immortality, but it was more indescribable and wondrous than actual ascension. Let's go and see. None of them could sit still anymore, they all got up and rushed towards Piled Thunder Mountain. At the foot of Piled Thunder Mountain, they ran into the scholarly saint and 3 rulers. None of these 4 knew what had happened, they had merely arrived here based on their senses. Looking up, the commanding general saw Bai Hongtu and Yu Yin seated cross-legged at the top of the mountain, their hearts pointing towards the heavens, spiritual energy roiling outwards from within. Are Taoist Bai and Taoist Yu about to pass through the calamity of ascension? Asked the chaos ruler perplexedly. The scholarly saint also cast a puzzled look. It seemed that the immortal elder and others knew something. Li Er shook his head and explained, they are to become Mahayana. There is no need to cross a calamity for becoming Mahayana. For a realm that doesn't exist, why cross a calamity to verify if one is qualified to become a Mahayana? The 3 rulers' pupils contracted, and they quickly used their spells to imprint this scene. The scholarly saint was also no longer at ease, they were actually about to break through to Mahayana. Li Er thoughtfully said, I still remember when Zhang, the human emperor, became Mahayana. The immortal elder said this display was exactly the same as recorded in ancient books. Zhang, the human emperor, has become a Mahayana like the immortal Lord Mingwo and the war immortal. 300 years ago, everyone hadn't seen this situation, and asked what was going on. Immortal elder stroked his beard, citing precedents alluding to ancient books, saying Mahayana was also known as the period of golden immortal, and this was a prelude to the tri-flower gathering at the top and the 5 Chis rushing to the origin. He also said that Mahayana was rare, so rare that the heavens were unwilling to bring down calamity, so there was no need for a calamity to become Mahayana. The immortal elder said a lot, perfectly explaining the phenomenon when Zhongli became Mahayana, which convinced and impressed everyone by his erudition. After Zhongli became Mahayana, he learned that the immortal elder had anticipated this long ago and admired the elder even more. He even went to Ceiling Self Cave to ask the immortal elder for his experience. The elder encouraged Zhongli a few words, urging him to strive for early cultivation to Mahayana's great perfection. After that, Zhongli strived hard to surpass the heavenly Tao. Ha ha ha, I, Bai Hongtu, have finally become a Mahayana. Bai Hongtu's laughter echoed from the mountain's peak to its foothills, sounding extremely proud. Now that he was also in the Mahayana realm like Zhongli, who could be weaker than whom? Zhongli, fight me. Zhongli humored Bai Hongtu's request and punched him square in the eye. Bai Hongtu fell onto the ground with a thud. Zhongli casually said, "Just now you've become Mahayana, which corresponds to the initial stage of an earth immortal." The speed of sound was much slower than the speed of light, so the spectators saw Bai Hongtu get punched by Zhongli, but what they heard was Bai Hongtu's hearty laughter stating that he had finally become Mahayana. Even within the Mahayana realm, there were differences in strength. Yu Yin was much more self-aware. She knew this was just the beginning, and she was far from having the qualifications to compete with Zhongli. Zhongli dragged Bai Hongtu by the leg down the mountain in a leisurely manner. Bai Hongtu's face was shoved to the ground with his head bobbing along the way. Yu Yin followed behind, wearing an expression as if she didn't know Bai Hongtu. The scene was harmonious with no one getting hurt. The commanding general, he felt that ever since the selection of the human emperor, they had often witnessed such a scene. Chapter 710, Immortal Body and Immortal Power. The three sovereigns faithfully recorded the entire process of Bai Hongtu's breakthrough into the Mahayana realm, from his initial start to the end where he was whisked off by Zhongli. The record was complete without missing a single moment, making it incredibly valuable. Zhongli and Bai Hongtu had a cultivation gap of 300 years, a gap even larger than that between Zhongli and the first emperor. Of course, the cultivation of the Mahayana realm does not solely depend on time. Even with 300 years of cultivation, an idle person would still fall far short of Zhongli. Zhongli explained his approach to breaking through into the Mahayana realm to the others. That is to say, breaking through into the Mahayana realm relies on believing that energy is not conserved and on the combined willpower of all beings. Sage Confucius couldn't quite comprehend the underlying principle of this method. Zhongli nodded. Based on the results, that seems to be the case. Both Bai Hongtu and Yu Yin did this and managed to reach the Mahayana realm. It's a rare opportunity. Who among you wishes to try? Forcing oneself to believe in the non-conservation of energy isn't a difficult task, but the condition of harboring the combined willpower of all beings proves too challenging. Although the old Dragon King was once a candidate for the position of human emperor, imitating the 52nd human emperor, Qing Luo, he merely replicated his methods, unable to step out of Qing Luo's shadow and lacking the breadth of mind a human emperor should possess. Sword Lord only cares about his sword, not the collective will of all beings, hence he is incapable of fulfilling this requisite. Li Er's heart isn't invested in all beings either. The three sovereigns remained impartial observers, only intervening in the observer civilization's issues at the very brink of extinction, maintaining an objective perspective rather than epitomizing compassion for all life. Of those present, only Captain Willow, Elder of Constancy, and Sage Confucius were capable of carrying the will of all beings. I'll give it a try. Captain Willow was the first to make an attempt. Ultimately, Captain Willow failed, showing no signs or indicators of penetrating the Mahayana realm. His brow lightly furrowed. Captain Willow didn't harbor an obsession with advancing into the Mahayana realm, but he was perplexed as to why he couldn't achieve the breakthrough. My turn. The Elder of Constancy went next, but his outcome was the same as Captain Willow's, no breakthrough into the Mahayana realm. Sage Confucius met the same end. The formidable spirit of the primordial supreme immortal could not offer any assistance in advancing into the Mahayana realm. What's going on? Zhongli frowned. Bai Hongtu and Yu Yin had both accomplished this, so why were others failing? Where had things gone awry? Remembering a possible answer, the Elder of Constancy hesitated, then voiced it. The three of us share a common characteristic: we are immortals. We are all immortals. Bai Hongtu inquired. Does Master mean to say that immortals cannot reach the Mahayana realm? The Elder of Constancy didn't directly answer Bai Hongtu's question. Instead, he organized his thoughts and slowly explained. Do you remember when I said that in terms of hierarchy, an immortal stands equal to a world? Only two things can exist within the void, a world or an immortal. The term, immortal, cited here exclusively refers to an immortal body. An immortal comprises two components, Immortal power and an immortal body. The immortal body depends on the immortal power for sustenance, otherwise, it will collapse, entering the underworld, waiting in line for reincarnation. Zhang Li and the others nodded their heads. When Bu Jing had realized the external landscape of the Supreme Clarity scripture, they had already discussed this theory with him. If Bu Jing wanted to use martial cultivation to become an immortal, his own existence would have to be equated with a world. Now, think about what kind of collective will of beings would form a powerful force. The Elder of Constancy prompted further. Zhang Li remembered the birth of the heavenly Tao, the birth of the earth veins, and the reason he came to Jojo. He suddenly had an epiphany: it's the collective will of an entire world's beings. The smallest unit of a collective will is a world. The Elder of Constancy agreed, gradually letting out his speculation. As the heavenly Tao said, the terrifying part is not the collective will of beings but the unity of will. If an immortal is considered a world, then an immortal's will is the world's will. When you use the collective willpower of beings to reach an immortal body, you yourself become a world. Your personal will becomes equivalent to the world's will. You believe in the non-conservation of energy, and at that moment, the non-conservation of energy becomes reality. The reason why immortals can't break through to the Mahayana realm could be many things. It might be an issue with the immortal power, or perhaps the Mahayana realm requires spiritual energy instead of immortal power. There might even be an inherent issue with the realm of immortality. I lean more towards the possibility of the issue lying with the immortal power, hindering the breakthrough to the Mahayana realm. Zhang Li turned his head and asked Sage Confucius, what exactly is immortal power? Immortality is a watershed that separates mortals from the sacred, with immortal power playing a crucial role. Sage Confucius wore a nostalgic expression. His memory traveled back to ancient times. In the very beginning, immortal power was the exclusive authority of the heavenly Tao. Only with the heavenly Tao's approval could one become an immortal. Later on, Tao sect's ancestor seized this authority from the heavenly Tao. He infused it into the stairway to immortality. When an immortal made it past the immortal ascension tribulation and ascended the stairway to immortality, they could become an immortal without requiring approval from the heavenly Tao. As for what immortal power actually is and why it was the exclusive authority of the heavenly Tao, I do not know. Zhang Li asked the Elder of Constancy once more, why, when I believe in the non-conservation of energy, does energy truly not conserve? If I believe in something else, why does that not happen? The Elder of Constancy looked at Zhang Li's eager eyes and gently shook his head, I don't know. There are, indeed, things he doesn't know. The Elder of Constancy summed up, based on what we have now, it seems that the prerequisite for reaching the Mahayana realm is not becoming an immortal. However, if you want to maintain an immortal body without falling apart, you need to make use of the collective will of beings. The others nodded in agreement. The Elder of Constancy's hypothesis succinctly explained the current phenomenon. In truth, everyone wasn't really concerned about whether they would reach the Mahayana realm or become an immortal. If they cannot become a Mahayana, they'd be satisfied with becoming an immortal. Either way, they couldn't defeat Zhang Li. As Bai Hongtu was coaxing everyone to celebrate at the Tao sect, suddenly, Zhang Li's sixth Tao seal rang out, carrying the voice of the earthly sovereign. What happened, Your Highness? Zhang Li asked cheerfully. He was in a good mood. The ancestor has crossed the river of time, leading a group of immortals to launch a surprise attack on the underworld. Zhang Li responded hastily, Your Highness, hold on, I'll rush over to help. Hearing this, Sage Confucius prepared to head to the underworld to provide support. The earthly sovereign casually said, there's no need to rush. The underworld is safe while Buddha and I are here. You need to worry about the ancestor. I'm just letting you know because we had an agreement. I'd keep you informed when the immortal realm attacks the underworld ancestor. Can you do anything right? Can't you win even one battle against us? By the end, the earthly sovereign's tone had sharply risen, proving that she wasn't talking to Zhang Li anymore. Zhang Li, this wasn't the situation he had anticipated. Should he still go? Sage Confucius suggested, you should still go. A victory or defeat among primordial supreme immortals can't be decided in one day or night. The ancestor is proficient in the Tao of time and can flee if he can't win. If he manages to escape, it'll be a mess. Will Sage Confucius accompany me? Sage Confucius shook his head. Given how calm Queen Hu sounds, I think it's fine for you to go alone. Chapter 711. The Primordial, after dealing with the underworld, returned to the immortal realm to drink celebration wine. Pair of 3, pair of 7, pair of 10. Blue Orchid, the 52nd human emperor, looking at the scattered cards in her hands, gritted her teeth and decided to play a big one. 4 Yuan cards, high. The 27th human emperor refused to show weakness. No wonder I don't have a single Yu Yin card in my hand, they're all with you. 4 Bai Hongtu cards to cover it. Little Lu, your turn. A victorious grin appeared on human emperor Lu's face. To Zhongli, bomb. In the underworld, 3 human emperors were playing Battle Zhongli to pass their leisure time. This was a special product brought back from JoJo by human emperor Lu, invented by Bai Hongtu, and widely circulated among the upper class in JoJo. Apart from Zhongli himself, basically everyone had played it a couple of times. When human emperor Lu first brought the game rules back to Underworld, it was greatly acclaimed by all generations of human emperors, finding it quite interesting. The 3 emperors chatted while playing cards. It's really strange. Initially, for the matter of the 8 desolations, we needed the Book of Life and Death, and you, little Lu, went on a mission to JoJo. After coming back, you described how thriving JoJo is now, incomparable to when we were in office, with such exuberance. Blue Orchid teased. Just half a month later, we got news that little Li was fighting in the immortal realm and completely wiped it out in one go. When Blue Orchid heard the news, she thought she was dreaming. This successor of theirs was absurdly powerful, sweeping through the immortal realm as effortlessly as cleaning out trash, without any difficulty. His biggest trouble had been not knowing where the immortal realm was. Human Emperor Lu also found it unreal. Fighting the immortal realm should be a step-by-step process, from small fish to big ones, from heavenly immortals to gold immortals, and finally the heavenly Tao. There should be a process, at least 3 to 5 days, right? The immortal realm can't be defeated in just a morning. Where would you put the face of the immortal realm? Even if the rest human emperors didn't believe it, they had to believe because the news was brought back by Buddha himself. If you described how Zhongli defeated the heavenly Tao in Buddha's words, it would be, I didn't understand it, I looked away for a moment and the heavenly Tao just fell. The ridiculousness was emphasized. The immortal realm, pursued by all cultivators in their lifetimes, vanished just like that. The younger generation is indeed to be feared. 3 Bai Hongtu cards, with a 5. I've heard from the dead that when Zhongli announced this, it caused quite a stir in JoJo. But order did not descend into chaos, people only discussed this at their leisure after dinner. Since then, our JoJo has officially begun exploring the 10,000 realms without any worries. More and more worlds have established contact, exchanging resources and progressing together. And those who died in other worlds say that their lives have significantly improved since their worlds were connected to JoJo. Their governments have become more attentive to their opinions. 2 Zhongli cards. Human Emperor Lu threw out 2 more Zhongli cards. Hold on, why do you always have Zhongli cards in your hand? Probably because I got irritated with Zhongli before, this brat must feel guilty and is compensating me. Suddenly, the underworld trembled, war intent and killing intent filled the air, intertwining into a huge net that enveloped the entire underworld. Is this a primordial immortal? Buddha, have you considered it? Do you want to stay in the underworld? In Fengdu City, Empress Hutu was entertaining Buddha, trying to persuade him to stay in the underworld. I've taken your kindness to heart, Empress, but I'm a sinner. I'm not qualified to stay in the underworld. Empress Hutu waved her hand, not approving Buddha's words. Don't say that. When Lord Yama used the Book of Life and Death to check on you, you saw it too, didn't you? Although your virtue of yin is not as immeasurable as Zhong Emperor, and not as plentiful as the sage spreading Tao in the heavens, but as the founder of Buddhism who advises people to do good and whose disciples help and take pleasure in doing good in the world, you also have great virtue of yin. Even the 10 halls of Yama don't have as much virtue as you do, and they can stay in the underworld, surely you can as well. Buddha hesitated. Does the Empress mean to let me become Yama? Empress Hutu bowed her hands in praise. How is that possible? I greatly admire Buddha's virtue of yin. You should become the lord of the underworld. Buddha calmly said. But the Empress founded the underworld on the rule of reincarnation of life and death, creating a unique order of the underworld. Therefore, the underworld is clearly distinguished from the world of the living. Spirits don't cause trouble in the world of the living, so death has become the biggest taboo in 10,000 realms and can't be changed. Even the descendants of the golden immortals, those who are domineering in the immortal realm, show fear at the mention of death, knowing that an important figure has taken the helm in the underworld and no one can shake the order of the underworld. The Empress's virtue of yin should be greater than mine. How am I qualified to replace the Empress to become the lord of the underworld? From the conversation, you could feel a hint of respect from Buddha towards Empress Hutu. Among the primordial immortal, the Daozu is the oldest, and Empress Hutu is not far behind, counting as a senior among all the primordial immortals. Because Empress Hu became an immortal so early, there aren't many legends about her in the immortal realm. Even her title is only circulated among the golden immortals and primordial immortals. Ordinary immortals don't know who the lord of the underworld is. Then you can be the underworld's second in command. Buddha no longer discussed this issue. I have a question I would like to ask the Empress. Why does she insist on separating life and death, with no exceptions? The order proposed by Emperor Shun seems to be completely opposite to the underworld. What Emperor Shun demanded was to establish an order that most people agree with, and most people obviously hope for resurrection and do not agree with the rules of the underworld. When she talked about this, Empress Hu got so annoyed that she couldn't vent her anger. All 5 primordial immortals knew there were 9 rules, but she thought there were only 8. How they bullied her. If it wasn't for Buddha telling her, she wouldn't even know the rule of destruction and the 2 ways to counteract it. She rolled her eyes and said irritably, the rules Shun advocated are clearly meant to be used in the world of the living. If we also follow the opinions of the majority in the underworld, no one would die. I've been establishing order in the underworld for so many years now, and I've never seen a black tide, which shows that the standards for establishing order in the underworld and the world of the living are different. In establishing order in the underworld, I just find it convenient for everyone to follow a specific procedure based on their virtue. Those who need to go to hell, go to hell, those who need to reincarnate, reincarnate. It simplifies unnecessary procedures and saves time. Empress Hu let the 10 halls of Yama stay in underworld on the same principle. She saves range when her subordinates work, so it's easier for her to relax. Buddha nodded. Indeed, if life and death are no longer strictly required, then the number of instances of coming back to life after death will multiply to unimaginable levels, causing chaos in both the underworld and the world of the living. At that time, it will take even more time and energy to refurbish the universe. Suddenly, a gap appeared in the sky above the underworld, causing a fluctuation in time. The river of time appeared, and the majestic Yuanzu led the elite of the immortal realm out of the river of time and launched a surprise attack on the underworld. Brothers, once we've taken care of the underworld, we will go back to the immortal realm and have a celebration feast. Respected God Hidden will surely reward us. Yuanzu's arrogant laughter echoed throughout the underworld. Chapter 712. We're all fighting, who cares about the chivalry of the Zhonghu, let's take it on together. The immortals journeyed steadfastly and confidently along the time river. Any single one of them, plucked at random, was an illustrious immortal, capable of laying out a golden opportunity that could turn ordinary beings of the immortal realm into immortals. Not all immortals were created equal, and among them, they belonged to the upper echelons, at the golden immortal tier. However, they were not masters of the path of time. Their ability to traverse the time river was entirely reliant on the path opened up by the ancestor in front of them. Unlike Zhang Li's wanton show of brute force, the ancestor employed genuine comprehension, which did no harm to the time river. Ancestor, are we really safe? I just can't shake this feeling of unease. The war immortal kept close behind the ancestor, indicating his high status. Had any other immortal spoken in this manner, the ancestor would certainly have disciplined them. But the war immortal was different. He was the ancestor's trusted lieutenant. The ancestor guffawed, pointing at the time river as he said, look at this year we've traversed, the immortal realm ravaging world after world, everything is proceeding according to plan. How could there be any unexpected turns? The war immortal frowned. Is it possible that what we have seen is an illusion? You're overthinking it. Apart from Emperor Shun, who else could create a false time river? If it was Emperor Shun, then what would his motive be? At the mention of Emperor Shun, the ancestor's teeth clenched with resentment. Emperor Shun, keep prancing around while you can. Wait till the time river is engulfed by the rule of destruction, let's see where you can then flee. The time and place are correct, prepare to break away from the time river. The ancestor tore through the time river, appearing above the underworld. Among the underworld, only the 10 halls of Yama are golden immortals. U18, led by the war immortal, begin by suppressing the 10 halls of Yama. As soon as you have succeeded, come help me defeat the Emperor Empress Hu. He he he. The moment the ancestor chortled a few times, Emperor Empress Hu and the Buddha leisurely flew up to the ancestor. Even the usually reticent Buddha couldn't help but crack a smile at the sight of the ancestor. The ancestor's laughter came to an abrupt halt. He rubbed his eyes, thinking it was his eyes playing tricks on him. It was normal for Emperor Empress Hu to be in the underworld, but where did the Buddha come from? What happened during this past year? Did the respected God Hidden grow tired of the Buddha battling the sage every day and decided to take him out? Even with the ancestor's quick wit, he couldn't grasp what had happened. The aura unintentionally emitted by the three supreme immortals instantly tightened the atmosphere above the underworld. Upon seeing this, the group of immortals hurriedly launched their assault on the 10 halls of Yama, not aiming to get involved in the battle between the supreme immortals. The moment the 10 halls of Yama learned that the immortal realm was launching an attack on the underworld and was now at their doorstep, they immediately set aside their tasks, stretching their limbs in preparation. Combat was far better than drudgery. The war immortal held his bow and arrow, stating coldly, "Surrender now, out of respect for you being our seniors in the immortal realm, we won't scatter your souls." The 10 halls of Yama were rattled by the war immortal's might. In their past lives, they had all been prominent figures in the immortal realm and recognized their adversaries, but the only one they were unfamiliar with was the war immortal, a battle prodigy who emerged in the recent 100,000 years. Now they saw that the war immortal lived up to his name. In the absence of the ancestor, the immortals took orders from the war immortal, whose aura markedly outstripped the average golden immortal. King Chuzong, revealing his true Kylan form, showed a gap where half his teeth were missing, laughing in a most unruly manner. "We fought Tao ancestors, faced human Emperor Zhong, why would we fear mere golden immortals?" King Chuzong then pointed at King Qingguang. "Do you see him? He oversees humanity, and every human emperor is subordinate to him. Each human emperor has been a predecessor of human Emperor Zhong." The war immortal frowned, unsure of who this human Emperor Zhong, that King Chuzong kept mentioning, was. This was not important, combat came first. Being reserved by nature, the war immortal's mind focused only on battle. Unlike other golden immortals who were suffixed by immortal monarch, the war immortal was the only one who, concise and clear in his name, did not contain the word immortal monarch as a cultivator. The battle immortal drew his bow, releasing a shocking swan arrow. The arrow's power was immense, forcing the 10 halls of Yama to dodge, dare not meet it head-on. "He's using a bow, which means he's not good at close combat." "Attack!" roared King Chuzong as he and King Qingguang came together to attack the battle immortal. Unexpectedly, the hand that the battle immortal held the bow with shook and the bowstring disappeared. The curved bow straightened, becoming an immortal gold stick. The immortal gold stick was soundly smashed on King Chuyang's face. King Chuzong, with only half of his teeth left, amazingly managed to bite the immortal gold stick. King Chuzong was known for being the toughest amongst the 10 halls of Yama. King Qingguang brought out the Book of Life and Death, using it on the group of immortals and reducing their lifespan with the judge's pen. "Track their past lives," ordered the King of Reincarnation, using his ultimate divine power which could temporarily sync the opponent's current and previous states of cultivation. The previous life of a golden immortal could never have been a golden immortal. King Wuguan made his move, robbing the opponent of their 5 senses. The 10 halls of Yama each showcased their divine skills. However, their opponents were not to be underestimated. After all, every golden immortal had a few tricks up their sleeve. Overturning the heaven and the earth. A golden immortal with blue skin made his move. His muscles bulged, signifying pure body cultivation in the pursuit of strength. It's the giant spirit immortal monarch who wrote the Dragon Tiger Arhat power. Having succeeded in his practice, he can grapple with real dragons when extremely furious. He also authored the Heaven Burning Sea Boiling skill, a cultivation technique that trains the vitality and blood. If he can integrate these 2 techniques, he should be able to learn the advanced version of overturning the heaven and the earth. Someone among the 10 halls of Yama recognized his identity. Overturning heaven and earth, what a grand aspiration. These body cultivators are wild and hard to deal with. "Great strength monument breaking hand," roared the giant spirit immortal monarch. His palm was as hard as a rock, as if it could split the world into 2. One sword opens the sky. A wave of sword chi swept over them. King Bian Cheng clapped his hands together, trapping the sword chi, which caused his palms to burn and swell. Bamboo sword immortal monarch. King Bian Cheng named his opponent. The bamboo sword immortal monarch, a master of the sword Tao, believed that anything could be a sword as long as a sword was in the heart. Wielding a piece of green bamboo as his sword, he made a great name for himself in the immortal realm as a loner. 100 Poisons Sutra, poison all living beings. The serpent scorpion immortal monarch unleashed his poisonous skill, emitting a chilling poisonous gas specifically targeting the souls. Once touched, the poison would become a recalcitrant disease attached to the bone, forcing the halls of Yama to expend their mental and physical strength to resist the poison. Creation of all things. An immortal monarch produced lifelike living beings using his cultivation technique. Despite these creations being only at the heavenly immortal level, their sheer quantity posed a significant nuisance to the halls of Yama. It's the creation immortal monarch who practices the Primordial Creation Sutra. he has the deepest understanding of the doctrine of creation. Below, the battle between the 10 halls of Yama and the Golden Immortals ended in a deadlock. Above, the ancestor forced out a smile, speaking in a negotiating tone. 2 against 1 is not a heroic deed. Both of you and I are 3 pure ones, the kings among immortals. Not to mention, you 2 are my seniors. It's only fair to fight one-on-one. Queen Mother of the West disregarded the battle of the Yamas below. She knew such level of fighting wouldn't defeat them and took this opportunity to let them have some exercise. Queen Mother of the West gently smiled at the ancestor. We are in the middle of a fight, who cares for chivalry now? Buddha, let's fight together. Queen Mother of the West fiercely made her move, with Buddha silently following behind her. The ancestor's face significantly changed. These 2 people have neither the temperament of seniors nor the demeanor of the 3 pure ones. The ancestor attempted to escape through the river of time. Just as he opened a gap, Emperor Shun kicked him out. See you around. Chapter 713. You if you've got the guts. Seeing that he could not enter the river of time, with both the Queen of Hutu and the Buddha, 2 mighty primordial supreme immortals, behind him, he slowly turned around, speaking deliberately and calmly. Listen to me before you make your move. The Queen of Hutu's soft fist smashed into his face, distorting his features. No. Upon hearing him speak, the Buddha, who had been following, had already stopped attacking. Seeing the Queen of Hutu continue her assault, he had no choice but to follow suit. Palm of the floating pagoda. The Buddha unleashed his own restraint, existing merely in this space, the surrounding space twisted and distorted. The Buddha stretched out his golden palm, much like the floating pagoda, suppressing all evil. The palm of the floating pagoda, as firm as yang as heavy, intricately involved the way of space. Once locked onto an enemy, it was certain to hit. First, he was hit by the Queen of Hutu's fist, followed by the Buddha's palm, leaving him in a rather awkward position. His form wavered, becoming increasingly blurry, akin to not belonging to this time and space. He retreated to the distance and said, I advise both of you to face reality. The energy from our battle cannot be hidden, it will surely pierce through the 36 heavens, break through the confines of time and space, and be perceived by the immortal realm. Once perceived by the immortal realm, the immortal emperor and the venerable will make a move, and in the end, you 2 will be the ones to suffer. Especially you, Buddha, the only one who can kill you is the venerable, and the power of the venerable is something you should know better than I do. If you oppose the venerable, there's only death. With the 6 Paths reincarnation tablet in hand, the Queen of Hutu struck it towards him. It's the first anniversary of the end of the immortal realm today, a day of mourning for the immortal realm. His body sat between spatial and temporal dimensions, any attack on him would have to reduce its power by half. But the Queen of Hutu's attack was different. The 6 Paths reincarnation tablet embodied the power of life and death reincarnation rules. The steel directly pulled his soul into reality, receiving the full brunt of the attack. Seeing the Queen of Hutu using the core of the underworld, the 6 Paths reincarnation tablet, for attack, the Buddha courteously asked, if I remember correctly, this 6 Paths reincarnation tablet is key for the reincarnation of all living beings in the heavens. Aren't you afraid that the steel would be damaged in battle? The Queen of Hutu demonstrated full confidence in the 6 Paths reincarnation tablet. The steel is not as fragile as you think. It took Taoist ancestor thousands of years to destroy this steel. Barely finishing her sentence, she used the steel to strike a few more times towards his forehead. Years sapped the strength. In his palm, 2 marks of years appeared, rushing towards the other 2. The aura of the Queen of Hutu and Buddha rapidly declined, as if they had aged from their prime to their twilight years in an instant. Normally, ghosts do not have a life limit, but with this great divine power of time, he forcefully ascribed a lifespan to the 2 of them. Their time quickly elapsed, reaching the end of their lifespan in a blink of an eye. For a golden immortal, this inherently exhausts their lifespan, and they would directly die of old age. Although it wouldn't kill those of the same rank, it could greatly weaken the opponent's condition. Both of their conditions were terrible. The Queen of Hutu's hair turned white, even the strength to strike others was weaker than before. However, she still maintained a young girl's posture, her mentality unchanged. The Buddha's hair didn't change much, he had a full head of flesh buns with no hair. Rebirth through reincarnation, the Queen of Hutu yelled, starting from the roots of her hair, turning white into black. Their eyes became fierce, he said slowly, soul metamorphosis, another lifetime. Infinite karma fire ignited from the Buddha's brows, quickly spread across his body. The Buddha was reborn from nirvana, returning to his peak form. His move can be fatal against a golden immortal, but against someone of the same rank, it wasn't as effective. As a supreme immortal of the primordial chaos, who didn't have a few trump cards? Time, give me strength. The river of time appeared once more, a figure emerged from the river and arrived in the present world. The figure revealed its true face, it was him. You from the past. The Buddha recognized his move, he had summoned his past self. However, his past self was devoid of consciousness, only possessing battle instincts, completely unaware of what was happening. His current self was equivalent to doubling his combat power. However, he didn't break into a smile. Firstly, he knew the other party had similar means. Secondly, after all this time, he still had received no reinforcements from the immortal realm. Could it be as the Queen of Hutu said, the immortal realm was already Path of Asura? The Queen of Hutu softly spoke, her appearance slightly different than before. Becoming more charming, bewitching all beings, her smile was more pronounced than before, obviously a war enthusiast. 6 paths of reincarnation, reflected in the Queen of Hutu's 6 postures. Previously, she maintained a flawless posture of heavenly beings. Now, she decided to switch her combat stance. War-mongering Asuras, the Asura path was most suitable for combat. The Buddha sat cross-legged, suddenly behind him a green Bodhi tree appeared. The treetop blossomed and bore fruit, a Buddhism fruit appeared. Beneath the Bodhi tree, a dark shadow separated from the Buddha's body. It was Mara, the Lord of Lust. Also, the heart demon of the Buddha. The Buddha subjugated his heart demon, using it to his advantage. The 3 of them unleashed their full power, fighting wildly. The rules of reincarnation, space, and time intertwined, with dazzling divine skills overwhelming the eye. The Queen of Hutu controlled the reincarnation of 6 paths, intending to transform him into an ugly, starving spirit in the realm of ghosts. Small, medium and large thousand worlds, the 3 realms layer by layer emerged, surrounding him. Worlds collided and the earth shook, as if it were the creation of the world. Mara produced an extremely terrifying face, those with weak resolve would die instantly from a single glance. He extended 1,000 hands, each holding a different weapon, pervaded with a strong demonic aura, much like the dark side of Buddha. The hymn from his past and present stirred time and space, the surrounding time was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. When it was fast, no one could see his attack. When it was slow, it was as if time had stopped and only he could move, making it impossible for others to defend. He could even make time flow in reverse on himself, causing the injuries to disappear. But, after all, he does not have the ability to fight 2 versus 1. In the face of the battle-ready Queen of Hutu along with Mara and the Buddha, he was forced to retreat, each time reversal to erase his injuries only made his next injury more severe. After fighting for a while, the Queen of Hutu remembered what she had previously told Zhongli. If the immortal realm was to strike, she was supposed to notify him. The Queen of Hutu was a person who kept her promises, speaking to the 6 paths mark on the back of her hand, she said, Human Emperor Zhongli, he crossed the river of time and brought a group of immortals to attack the underworld. Oh, you don't have to rush over, can't you do any better, trying to attack the underworld with such weak strength? Angry, he retorted, you think you're so tough? Battle me one-on-one. The Queen of Hutu gestured nonchalantly, speaking to Mara, come on, let's give him a one-on-one. Upon hearing her words, Mara withdrew one hand, continuing the battle with his remaining 999 hands. Swiftly avoiding the attack, he angrily stared at the Queen of Hutu, have the guts to fight me solo. Zhongli, through the mark of 6 paths, arrived in the sky above the underworld, curiously asking, who wants to fight solo? Chapter 714, Complete Achievement of Human Emperor Strength of Zhongli. Emperor Shun frowned at Zhongli, as if he couldn't comprehend Zhongli's existence. Zhongli casually turned around and asked with a smile, figure anything out? Uncertain, the primordial sovereign said, why do you have no talent in the path of time? The primordial sovereign could see the cultivation talents of the path of time, others, more or less, all had a little bit of it. With a few 100,000 years, they could at least learn the basics. He had never seen anyone with absolutely no talent in the path of time before. Zhongli was so annoyed he wanted to hit someone right then and there. Afterwards, Goddess Hutu stepped forward and advised, I told you not to rush over. What are you doing coming here so early? Let us continue our fight, you go help the 10 halls of Yama, so they won't get hurt and start crying for a break. The war immortal was leading 17 golden immortals against the 10 halls of Yama, and the latter were in a very difficult situation. Giant spirit immortal monarch, having cultivated the, overturning the heaven and the earth, was powerful beyond measure, he sent King Dushi flying with a direct strike. Zhongli caught the falling King Dushi and, watching the giant spirit immortal monarch's display of immortal power through cultivation techniques, revealed a smile filled with interest. He saw the familiar operation root of cultivation techniques. Is this the result of combining the Dragon Tiger Arhat power and Heaven Burning Sea Boiling skill? He asked. Dragon Tiger Arhat power was the reward given by the system after completing the first task, defeating Zhang Yisheng. As this technique was not as good as Zhongli Emperor's power, Zhongli had no intention of delving further into it. Heaven Burning Sea Boiling skill was the system task reward obtained from finding the lineage of the beast man under the cliff of Great Way. The technique description stated it could let qi and blood boil, boosting combat power. After trying to practice it, Zhongli found that for him, it could calm his qi and blood, achieving the effect of calming qi and concentrating spirit. These two cultivation techniques had been gathering dust in his storage ring for a while now. Zhongli suspected that, overturning the heaven and the earth, would be among the rewards when the system gives out the quest for the immortal realm. Who are you? Giant Spirit Immortal Monarch was wary as if facing a formidable adversary. Anyone who dared to meddle in this level of combat must have absolute confidence in their own strength. Come, let's find out whether your overturning the heaven and the earth is stronger, or my Zhongli's Emperor's power is stronger. Zhongli's Emperor's power, when thoroughly practiced, can arm wrestle with Zhongli's own hand. Zhongli can let his left and right hand wrestle each other. According to this reasoning, Zhongli has already completely practiced Zhongli's Emperor's power. Boastful talk, powerful fist of breaking spells. Giant Spirit Immortal Monarch had absolute confidence in his own strength. He had never met anyone who dared to compete with him in strength before. Zhongli threw a punch nonchalantly. This punch was not fast, but to Giant Spirit Immortal Monarch, the punch reached its extreme speed. The shadow of the fist gradually enlarged in his pupils, leaving nowhere to escape. Even before the fist got close to the Giant Spirit Immortal Monarch, the fist's power was like a giant grindstone, rolling over the Giant Spirit Immortal Monarch over and over again. His flesh, bones, and soul were all crushed by the fist one after another. Powerful fist of breaking spells. I remember it's the system task reward for rescuing Sword Monarch from the Sword Tomb. Zhongli retracted his fist, vaguely recalling it. Rampant 100 poisons. Scorpion Snake Immortal Monarch had a cluster of poisonous creatures emerging from his sleeves. They were 1 in a million poisonous specimens, each capable of being called the King of Poisons. Their potent venom could even kill a heavenly immortal. He often had his subordinates carry his poisonous creatures and slowly poison an entire world to death. A familiar technique. Zhongli laughed. The 100 Poisons Sutra that Scorpion Snake Immortal Monarch practiced was also one of the system rewards. It must be an incomplete copy though, as the system wouldn't reward a technique that would directly allow one to practice up to the level of Golden Immortal. Scorpion Snake Immortal Monarch's body was full of poison, anyone who touched him would have a piece of their flesh rotted off. This made King of Reincarnation hesitate in his actions. Dissipate, poisons, Zhongli's declared, his tone calm. Like sand in the wind, the poisons scattered around the underworld and soon lost their toxicity. What kind of technique is this? Scorpion Snake Immortal Monarch's body was also vanishing. His body had been cultivated into a poisonous body, he himself was a venomous creature, and in fact, the biggest one. The Golden Immortals who had trapped the 10 Halls of Yama in a fierce battle were unable to take even 2 moves from Zhongli before they were close to death. Like walking in a place with no one in sight, Zhongli had the Golden Immortals scattering and fleeing with various escape techniques as effortlessly as killing chickens. If they had known how terrifying the underworld was, they would have rather stayed in the immortal realm and followed the Immortal Emperor's orders. They thought it was pointless following the primordial sovereign who could control time. With Zhongli there, no escape technique was effective. The 17 Golden Immortals were like falling rain, the sounds of immortal bodies thudding onto the ground was never ending. Among the Golden Immortals, only the War Immortal remained. Living up to his name, the War Immortal was battling 2 at once, fighting against King Chuzhong and King Qingguang without being at a disadvantage. He was far stronger than the primordial sovereign. This is the War Immortal. King Yama introduced. The War Immortal. Zhongli didn't expect to meet the War Immortal here. He had thought the War Immortal had disappeared with the destruction of the immortal realm. Ancient sage Chong said that the War Immortal was a ruthless character who had managed to cultivate to the Mahayana realm. The War Immortal also came from Kyushu, but because he cultivated too quickly, he didn't leave many traditions or legends in Kyushu. Preoccupied with the battle, the War Immortal was undistracted, paying no attention to Zhongli. He knew he couldn't defeat Zhongli, and he could not escape either. Since he was bound to die either way, he might as well continue the battle he was already engaged in. Zhongli didn't intend to kill the war immortal. Instead, he turned to King Yama and asked, "How are his yin virtues?" King Yama frowned. "It's strange. All the immortals have negative yin virtues, except for the war immortal. Although his yin virtues are not many, he does have them. In these 9,000 years, he actually hasn't destroyed a single world." Zhongli was not surprised by this result. At a glance, he could see that the war immortal was a remarkably pure person with no concept of good or evil. He only liked to fight and didn't do anything else. He couldn't even come up with those strange methods of destroying worlds. "Enough, stop this pointless fighting. Surrender." As Zhongli spoke, he released his Mahayana realm pressure on the war immortal. The war immortal felt as if he was being stared at by a mysterious, colossal creature, instantly freezing his body and making him unable to move. "I surrender." The war immortal was straightforward, raising his hands above his head, showing no intention to fight. He did not relish the idea of fighting a battle he could not win. "Who are you?" asked the war immortal, unable to fathom Zhongli. He only felt that Zhongli was even stronger than the great primordial immortal. "Like you, I also come from Kyushu." A surprised expression crossed the war immortal's face. "I always thought I was the strongest among those from Kyushu. I didn't expect that there would be a stronger existence." Just as Zhongli wanted to say something, he heard Goddess Hutu shout from above, "That's enough fighting, it's someone else's turn." Zhongli looked up at the three of them above his head. In the sky over the underworld, the three great primordial immortals could appear anywhere, and behind them, vague images of their past selves would also appear. This was space-time distortion caused by the collision of rules. Goddess Hutu and the Buddha retreated to one side, consciously making way for Zhongli. Though they could defeat the primordial sovereign, it was exceedingly difficult to kill him outright. They still needed Zhongli to take action. Taking advantage of Goddess Hutu's attention on the primordial sovereign, the 10 halls of Yama secretly surrounded the war immortal. "Quick, give us a few blows. It's best if you severely wound us, so we can rest." The war immortal flatly refused. Faking it is wrong. Chapter 715. The Power of Time Aging People. "Who are you, really?" the primordial one asked Zhongli with caution. The fact that Hutu the Emperor and the Buddha vacated their seats implied the man before them was not to be underestimated. And considering what was mentioned earlier about the immortal realm's destruction, it was hard not to wonder what connection this man had to it. "My name is Zhongli, and I come from Jojo." Jojo again. The primordial one had mixed feelings about Jojo. His proudest warrior came from there, and so did his most loathed adversary, Emperor Shun. And now here was Zhongli, another figure from Jojo and just as inscrutable. Let's preserve our strength. If you surrender, it would save me some effort. How about it?" Zhongli proposed, brushing off the primordial one's dismissal of his talent in the way of time. Who said he had no talent? He could handle so simple a matter as the way of time by just speaking it into being. The primordial one burst out laughing. "You expect a primordial golden immortal to surrender just like that? Young man, aren't you rather arrogant?" With that said, the primordial one made his move, wielding the way of time. With profound gaze, he foresaw Zhongli's next move. "I see it coming, a punch from you. Knowing what you're about to do, how could I still get hit splat?" And yet, just like that, the primordial one was hit by Zhongli's punch and was sent flying. He saw Zhongli's next move was a kick, and sure enough, he was kicked once again. The primordial one really is impressive. He can foresee precisely how he's about to get beaten, Hutu the Emperor commended applaudingly. She had reverted to her state of celestial being after disengaging from the fight. Watching Zhongli fight was quite enjoyable. He was overwhelmingly powerful and his fighting style was simple and straightforward, demanding no thought. Hutu the Emperor gradually understood the Wei ancestors' intention. With someone like this taking the lead, there was no need for them, the primordial golden immortals, to trouble themselves. "You 10, why are you still watching the fight? Is there going to be a different result? Don't just stand there and do nothing. Is your work all finished? Go and get back to it." Hutu the Emperor waved off the 10 yamas of the underworld. One could hardly object when someone of higher rank gave an order. The 10 yamas could only return to work dutifully. The warrior objected, "That isn't right, is it? Why should the leaders rest while the underlings toiled?" Upon hearing this, Hutu the Emperor's countenance suddenly turned cold, and she emanated a suffocating aura of murderous intent. She threatened the warrior in an ice-cold tone, "You're the warrior. Dare to speak like this to a primordial golden immortal. Aren't you afraid of dying? The warrior shook his head. No. Why? Renowned warrior then boldly admitted, because apart from me, everyone here is basically dead. You all seem more alive than the people in the immortal realm. Hu-Tu the emperor let go of her false menacing act and returned to her usual expression. Then let me ask another question. If you were in charge of the Book of Life and Death, and someone pleaded with you tearfully to revive them, what would you do? The warrior was confused. My duty is to manage the Book of Life and Death. What has their crying got to do with me? Hu-Tu the emperor burst into delighted laughter. Yama, how much virtue does he have? My lady, barely enough to reincarnate as a human, came the reply. Hu-Tu the emperor dismissed the thought with a wave of her hand. Don't let him reincarnate then. After death, let him stay in the underworld to work as a ghost messenger. Depending on his performance, he can be promoted to a substitute Yama even. With a good enough performance, he can become a real Yama, replacing one of you. This way, you'd all get a chance for a break. At this, the 10 Yamas were moved to tears. The warrior furrowed his brow, but I want to fight. Each of the 10 Yamas slapped their chests and declared, don't worry. If you become a Yama, you can challenge any of us that you want. We promise to accept the challenge. The warrior's eyes brightened. The underworld really was a good place. After vanquishing all his opponents in JoJo, he rose to the immortal realm to seek worthy adversaries. At first, there were a few immortals willing to fight him, but as he improved, his prowess left few peers among the golden immortals. Most in the immortal realm became unwilling to fight him, leaving only the Wei ancestors' 3 incarnations as willing opponents. During the respected God Hidden's reign, everyone was too busy attempting to destroy the world to seize virtue for their cultivation progress. He, however, did not like to improve cultivation via virtue, nor did he enjoy obliterating worlds. All he really wanted was to fight. But everyone was too busy then, and none were willing to fight him. His only opponents were his past and future incarnations, both arranged by the Primordial One himself. Little did he expect to find the opportunities for battle he had dreamt of in the underworld. Without a second thought, the warrior cut off his own lifeline and officially joined the underworld. The Buddha watched in silence from the sidelines, remaining mute throughout. He wanted to see how the underworld would recruit normally. Below, the underworld was holding a welcoming ceremony for its new recruit. Above, the Primordial One was still getting beaten. Both the top and the bottom were bustling with activity. The Primordial One found that even being able to anticipate Zhong Li's moves was rendered useless. Avoidance was just not an option. You've forced this upon yourself. The Primordial One changed his strategy and exerted the great divine power, trying to turn Zhong Li into an old man, aging with each passing year. This divine skill essentially cut its target off from the flow of time within the wider space, allowing the subject's time to rapidly advance even as the outside world continues at its normal speed. No living being, however powerful, could resist the passaging of time. All could do was to reconcile after falling within its grapple, rather than avoiding it. This was one of the Primordial One's ace cards, to be used only once against the same person. Facing the enigmatic Zhong Li, the Primordial One didn't hold back at all, deciding to counterattack the moment he had had enough. Zhong Li didn't dodge nor retreat. Instead, he responded with a punch that collided with the Primordial One's, taking the brunt of the blow directly. As the seal of time hit him, his time began to accelerate drastically. Meanwhile, the Primordial One got sent flying once again. Blood spitting, the Primordial One laughed heartily while coughing up more blood that seeped into his garments. Ha ha ha, who cares if you're strong in the present? So many heroes have been lost within the river of time, they didn't even make a ripple. Quote, I admit you are at your peak now, much like Hu-Tu the Emperor and the Buddha. But your state of peak implies that you will grow weaker in the future. Zhong Li did not refute the Primordial One's claim. Instead, he closed his eyes and focused on the new sensation coursing through his being. It was a peculiar feeling as he could feel his body changing, evolving into something different from before. The way of time really is quite fascinating. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 3 years. While but a few breaths had passed in the outside world, 3 whole years had elapsed for Zhong Li. Both the Primordial One and Zhong Li discovered simultaneously that the limit of the seal of time was a 3-year advance on Zhong Li's body. Age. The Primordial One bellowed, pouring more of his immortal power into the seal of time. Cracks began to run across the seal of time, and before the Primordial One could stop, the seal of time shattered of its own accord. Zhong Li flexed his body, realizing the Primordial One's divine skill was equivalent to him progressing 3 years in his cultivation practice at an accelerated speed. Zhong Li brought his fists together in humble inquiry, would you mind doing that a few more times? The primordial one. What kind of opponent had he encountered? Chapter 716. Attack from the future. Zhang Li was truly grateful to the ancestor for giving him 3 more years to cultivate. His urge for the ancestor to use this spell a few more times came from his heart. Zhang Li knew how to repay a debt of gratitude. He had just saved the ancestor's life. The ancestor's move did not break the law of energy conservation. The energy for Zhang Li's extra 3 years should have been drawn from the ancestor. With the ancestor's insufficient energy, death was certain. Therefore, Zhang Li kindly provided his own energy, not needing anything from the ancestor. But these words didn't ring the same in the ancestor's ears. I almost bled to death casting a great divine power, but you came out unscathed and even benefited from it. The ancestor had used his aging spell on many people, but had never seen one grow stronger from it. The Empress Hu too laughed so hard below, it hurt her belly. She knew this would be the result. Serves me right for making my hair turn white. I know you're strong, but even your strength has limits. You can only show off in the 10,000 realms. If you have the guts, let's fight on the river of time. The ancestor couldn't forcibly drag someone of the same level into the river of time, so he had to provoke Zhang Li to go to the river of time willingly. The ancestor, being the strongest, knew the mindset of the strongest. The strongest like to prove their strength, showing that they are the strongest at any time and place. Just like the Empress Hu too, who was proficient in the rules of life and death cycles. In the underworld, facing souls, she was the strongest. The ancestor was the same. He was proficient in the Tao of time. In the river of time, he was the strongest. He intended to use the home court advantage and defeat Zhang Li. The feature of the river of time is that people without knowledge of the Tao of time can hardly get by. Under these circumstances, how could Zhang Li fight him? Fine, Zhang Li had no reason to disagree. The ancestor was confident of winning, the Tao of time gathered in his arms, where even the sound of rushing waves could be heard, as if it was the voice of the river of time itself. The ancestor's hands were as if filled with lead, swinging with great difficulty. He created seals with the Tao of time, one after another, stacked densely. As he made more and more seals, the Tao of time in his arms diminished. Open! With a loud shout from the ancestor, a hole opened in the space where the river of time was when he pulled back with both hands. The ancestor had experience now and was prepared for Emperor Shun's interference. Emperor Shun could only launch ambushes. His true cultivation was far less than his. If Emperor Shun dared to show up, the ancestor would definitely capture him. This time, Emperor Shun didn't appear. Both the ancestor and Zhang Li entered the river of time. 2 figures, spanning the ancient and modern times, stood tall on the chaotic river of time, facing each other. The ancestor took a deep breath of the chaos mist, feeling a sense of intimacy. This was where he gained enlightenment and proved his Tao. He had a fortuitous encounter in his youth, accidentally entering the river of time, unlocking the talent of the Tao of time. From then on, his cultivation soared, advancing rapidly, far surpassing his peers. Moreover, he had proven his Tao in the river of time, becoming the 5th immortal of the primordial chaos, looked back through eternity with a smile. I want to see how you move. Only he could move on the river of time. Various apparitions appeared behind the ancestor. The yellow-green great clock, as large as a mountain, emitted deafening sounds, symbolizing time and destiny. The hands of the clock moved swiftly as if narrating the greatness of the powerful ancestor, who could manipulate time with ease. Inaudible praise rose, coming from the believers of the ancestor in the 10,000 realms. These people wished for time to slow down its steps, to reverse, to return to their youth, and to start a new life. The phantom of the immortal ascension ladder also appeared around the ancestor. Time's part in the immortal ascension ladder was the ancestor's doing. Luo Ying and Yu Feng's ability to restart their lives were all tied to the ancestor. The ancestor started, the apparitions that held various principles behind him started morphing and attacked. If a supreme being of primordial chaos were to witness this move, they would have to go all out to defend themselves. Without saying another word, Zhang Li grabbed the ancestor's head and smashed it into the ground. Flamboyant, how can you still move in the river of time? The ancestor was chilled to the bone, immediately understanding the reason. This person was so powerful that the chaos mist of the river of time could not block him at all. How could there be such a powerful person? Zhang Li grabbed his head and couldn't get rid of it, so he severed his own head, his body moving away from Zhang Li, and a new head grew out again. The past, the present, and the future are all in my grasp. Seeing Zhang Li as his most formidable opponent in life, the ancestor didn't hesitate to use his most powerful move. He intended to summon his past and future selves to aid him. Even under the dual attacks of the Empress Hu and the Buddha, he had never easily summoned his future self. Summoning his future self was equivalent to overdrawing his original source. Two more figures appeared on the river of time, one from the upper reaches and one from the lower reaches. Gigi had once said that one could only see one's current self in the river of time, not the past or the future. This move by the ancestor violated Gigi's understanding. The Tao of time of a supreme being of the primordial chaos is unfathomable. The past ancestor appeared, emotionless, waiting for the current ancestor's orders. The future ancestor came up and slapped the ancestor as soon as he arrived. Stop fooling around, just surrender. After speaking, the future ancestor swam back to the future. The ancestor was stunned, he had never been slapped by himself before. Whose side are you on? Zhongli felt that the ancestor was also quite pitiful and decided to give him a helping hand. I'll just throw a punch. Whether you end up like the immortal emperor, where your soul gets extinguished, or like the Buddha who still has his soul left, it's all up to fate. Zhongli clenched his fist and threw a punch straight out. Yellow-green great clock, corona of time, eternal ice age seal. Both ancestors cast one divine spell after another in an attempt to block Zhongli's punch. The yellow-green great clock that shook the river of time was pierced. The corona of time, which could alter time with the twist of a hand, was pierced. The eternal ice age seal that could freeze years and stop time was also pierced. Any divine skill, any weapon, before Zhongli's punch, was no sturdier than paper. The same goes for the ancestor's body. The past ancestor was blown away by the pressure of the punch, and the current ancestor was directly hit and his soul left his body, exploding. Zhongli had the experience of fighting a supreme being of primordial chaos. This punch looked ordinary, but it contained the Tao techniques that Zhongli had researched, which wouldn't allow the ancestor's body to regenerate. In other words, the ancestor was truly dead. Zhongli threw the ancestor's soul into the river of time, sent it back to reality. The ancestor was left with only a soul and was in the territory of the underworld. The Empress Hu and the Buddha were more than capable of dealing with the ancestor. He decided to stay in the river of time. He faintly felt that someone in the upper reaches of the river of time was waiting for him. However, the upper reaches were shrouded in thick fog, making visibility impossible. The only option was to move forward and see. Zhongli arrived at the upper reaches of the river of time and saw Emperor Shun holding a banner. The banner read, "Welcome, human Emperor Zhongli, to the river of time." Countless tiny white fish were in the river of time, blowing bubbles, seemingly welcoming Zhongli's arrival. Chapter 717, A Seamless Plan. My sweet girl, are you saying that after coming back this time, you are even more determined to become the human emperor? Gigi looked at Ji Kongkong's stubborn expression, feeling some heartache. When she was young, she was such an obedient child. How did she change so much as she grew up? She had a chance to be the Zhou emperor, but instead she insisted on becoming the human emperor. How can an ordinary person become the human emperor? Even your father didn't even make it to the top 3 candidates. Just look at who the top 3 were back then. One was a violent woman, and the other 2 were good-for-nothing warriors. Ji Kongkong firmly nodded her head. This time I went to a place called Zhou Tian's World, where I met a man who shares the same name as Uncle Zhang. He spent his life fighting for his dreams. I want to be like him. ... You can also achieve your dreams by becoming the Zhou Emperor. Gigi attempted to persuade her. Everyone else is trying to be emperor, but our Zhou family is the only one who refuses the throne even when it's offered to us. That's different. My dream is to establish order throughout the world. Gigi continued. Your father is getting old, and your brothers and sisters are not competent enough. If you don't become the Zhou Emperor, then who will? Ji Kongkong glanced at her father and said, if you had said this earlier, I might have believed you. But now you have reached the body integration realm, your lifespan has greatly increased, and by the time I step down from the position of the human emperor, you will still be in your prime. In any case, I've made up my mind. I will compete with my peers for the throne of the human emperor, and prove that I am the one most suitable to be the human emperor. With that, Ji Kongkong turned and walked away, flipping her high ponytail, looking quite dashing. Watching his daughter's retreating figure, Gigi sighed. Of course, he knew his daughter was right. After all, who wouldn't dream of becoming the human emperor? So, Zhongli, you should understand if I went back in time to teach you a lesson, right? Gigi revealed a strange smile. His plan was flawless. No matter how strong Zhongli was, he would be helpless against an attack from the past. As Zhongli was warmly welcomed by Emperor Shun in such a grand way, he was deeply moved. I thought the River of Time would reject me, but you guys welcomed me so warmly. I will definitely visit the River of Time more often in the future. Emperor Shun quickly rolled up the banner and chased away the little white fish. There's nothing here in the River of Time that should concern the human emperor, it's quite boring here. You should spend more time in the 9 provinces. I came here this time because I have important information to tell the human emperor. Zhongli raised his eyebrows. What information? Emperor Shun said mysteriously, Gigi is preparing to go back to the past, to embarrass you when you were still young. As his ancestor, I have the obligation to correct his mistakes. However, since this involves you, it might be best if you handle it. Zhongli immediately understood Emperor Shun's painstaking effort. But won't Gigi's actions cause the younger me to remember things that didn't happen, disrupting the flow of time and creating a parallel world? The ancestor wouldn't ask such a stupid question, but this was Zhongli, after all. Thinking of this, Emperor Shun replied, it won't. Such small deviations will not cause the creation of a parallel world. Moreover, the River of Time has self-healing properties. After you've been beaten up, the River of Time will seal your memories. Once Gigi has done everything and returned to the normal timeline, the seal will automatically be lifted. I see. Zhongli understood. What do I need to do? Emperor Shun laughed. Gigi is planning to go back to when you were 18. All you need to do is go back to that time as well and stop Gigi's actions. And try not to let the people from that time find out. Emperor Shun invited Zhongli onto the boat and rowed from the River of Time representing the underworld to the River of Time representing the 9 provinces. This is the place. Zhongli jumped off with a splash. Emperor Shun smiled and waited for a while. A familiar figure came up from downstream. It was Gigi. Gigi was stunned. He never expected to see his ancestor, Emperor Shun, here. He was so moved that he didn't know what to say. Emperor Shun didn't say anything. His eyes were full of wisdom, as if they were speaking. Gigi understood his ancestor's intention. Go ahead and teach Zhongli a lesson, I've got your back. Gigi also jumped into the river with a splash. Where am I? A young Zhongli woke up in a dilapidated house, looking around in confusion. Where was I before, and why am I here now? The young Zhongli recalled his experiences on Blue Star, remembered the judgment in court, but couldn't remember what happened afterwards. It was as if a part of his memory had been stolen. Memories flooded into young Zhongli's mind like a tidal wave, overwhelming him with a splitting headache. As he sorted out his memories, the pain gradually disappeared. So it turns out I traveled to a cultivation world, and this is the 9 provinces continent. This place is the Qingchengjiang family of the Great Zhou Empire. My father is the former clan leader. Zhang Yixing is the son of the current clan leader and he was particularly fond of bullying my former self who died of rage from the humiliation. This is really something. The young Zhongli was speechless. What kind of situation was this? You're in a world of cultivators but you're not cultivating and thinking about how you're the son of the former clan leader all day. Thankfully, judging from my memory, the Great Zhou Empire is a nation that upholds the law, everyone is quite reasonable on the surface. Things could be worse, but these relatives are quite annoying. The cultivation technique I'm practicing is the diagram of spiritual energy, so it should be circulated like this according to the memory, right? The young Zhongli tried to circulate the spiritual energy for a small cycle, which was quite strenuous. It was apparent that his previous cultivation had been neglected. The worst 5 elements spiritual root, at least it's not a wasted constitution. It's good that I am able to cultivate. The young Zhongli chuckled. He quite enjoyed the feeling of cultivation, it was very comfortable. The 5 elements spiritual root was still within his acceptable range. After all, more than 99% of people have the 5 elements spiritual root. He was just not special. Being ordinary was not bad at all. The most important thing right now is to see how big this 9 provinces continent really is. The young Zhongli picked up a few books on the bedside. The books were covered in a thick layer of dust. It seemed that the former Zhongli seldom looked at them. Cultivator's Guide. Preview of Cultivation. A comprehensive study of the 9 provinces, the names are quite ordinary. The young Zhongli started flipping through the books, soon becoming immersed in them, captivated by the grandeur of the 9 provinces described inside. Several days passed. He had been reading the whole time without even a thought of sleep, as if he had slept for a long time before and would not need to sleep for the next few days. The young Zhongli closed the book and stretched. The cultivation levels are similar to the novels I read in my previous life. They all have Qi cultivation, nascent soul, tribulation crossing, and Mahayana. The Mahayana realm and Ascension are too far away from me, I dare not wish for them. Well, let's set a small goal first, cultivate to the latter stage of Qi accomplishment. This 9 provinces is so vast, the Great Zhou Empire alone is larger than the Blue Star in my previous life. Why should I stay in the Qingcheng Zhang family? Zhang Li looked down at his younger self who had just crossed over from the sky above Qingcheng and showed a slight smile. He was so naive back then. Chapter 718, The Plan That Leaks from All Sides. I'm preparing to leave the Zhang family. I need some traveling money. In the ancestral hall of the Zhang family, teenager Zhang Li spoke his request in an even tone. Zhang Yixing sneered. You want to leave the Zhang family and you expect to get money for traveling expenses? Dream on. Zhang Li ignored Zhang Yixing's mockery, earnestly looking at the current Zhang family clan leader. Zhang Yixing was a bit annoyed. How had Zhang Li become so audacious in just a few days? Why should I give you traveling expenses? The Zhang family clan leader said indifferently. Because after you took over as clan leader, you took the money my father left for me. If you don't give me money for travel expenses, I'll report you to the city lord's mansion. The Zhang family clan leader didn't take Zhang Li's words seriously, and playfully said, then go and complain. You have no evidence, on what basis would you report me? Zhang Li calmly said, although I might not successfully complain against you, airing dirty laundry in public would lead everyone in Qingcheng to know about the internal strife in the Zhang family, and thereby casting doubts over your legitimacy as clan leader. The smiles on the Zhang family clan leader's face faded. His good nephew had indeed changed, seemingly having a sudden moment of enlightenment. Fine, I'll give you traveling expenses, but in return, you need to sever all ties with the Zhang family. The young Zhang Li agreed. Seeing Zhang Li's expression, the Zhang family clan leader was slightly suspicious. Did he know from the beginning that this would be the outcome? Is this still the timid nephew from before? The Zhang family clan leader didn't want to confront Zhang Li's calculating gaze anymore, so he handed over the traveling money and asked him to leave at once. Young Zhang Li used a few pennies to buy a string of sugar-coated haws, packed his travel money, and contentedly left Qingcheng. Great Zhou, here I come. Zhang Li also bought a string of sugar-coated haws, shrank his body, changed his appearance from that of a young man to a teenager, waiting for Ji to arrive. This is Qingcheng, where Zhang Li once said that he was very weak during his time, only at the Qi cultivation stage. Ji revealed his ill intent with a smile. Young man, it's time for you to know the dangers of the world. Don't ask why you, who are in the Qi cultivation stage, will be bullied by someone in the body integration realm. Blame it on your future self being too powerful for anyone to defeat. Discussing how strong Zhang Li would be in the future, Ji was suddenly reminded of a problem. Legend has it that after the primordial chaos immortal succeeded in his Tao, his past became a fait accompli, and no one could change it. If anyone tried to traverse the long river of time to kill him, he would sense it and prevent it. Why didn't Zhang Li sense anything? That's understandable. After all, Zhang Li doesn't know any cultivation arts, so he couldn't be viewed as the primordial chaos immortal. Ji, having found a reasonable explanation, started to search for Zhang Li in Qingcheng with peace of mind. Soon, Ji spotted Zhang Li, who was enjoying his sugar-coated haws. Eating sugar-coated haws at such a young age. Ji muttered to himself, then put on a pair of sunglasses, and holding a flag with the Taiji Bagua design, blocked Zhang Li's path. The young brother here looks troubled. Would you like a fortune-telling? Zhang Li looked at this stranger warily. Who are you? Ji posed a greeting and confidently said, I'm Guanjing, a Taoist priest from Zuokong Mountain. I can understand the workings of the heavenly machine, predicting the future and knowing the fate of all beings. Recently, I have been having premonitions but could not make a breakthrough. So I came down the mountain to do good deeds and remove calamities for all beings. Zhang Li was still very cautious. Do you charge money? Being stingy at such a young age. You still haven't returned the spirit stone I lent you. Ji muttered before he quickly put on a professional smile. How could that be? All beings suffer, how could I add to their burden? That's good, Zhang Li said, feeling reassured. Why doesn't the young brother tell me about your troubles? So that I could help remove them. Zhang Li rolled his eyes. Aren't you a fortune teller? Then why don't you try predicting my troubles? This place is so bustling, the red dust atmosphere is too strong, it's not conducive for me to perform Taoist magic. Young brother, come, follow me here. Ji led Zhang Li to a secluded place, a convenient place to hit someone. Pretending to know his stuff, Ji chanted a few phrases that jumbled and mystified. Zhang Li asked doubtfully, why do I feel like you're misinterpreting the Big Zhou laws? Ignoring Zhang Li's question, Ji stated confidently, I have arrived at a conclusion. Please enlighten me, respected Taoist priest. In your family, your actions are constantly restricted, particularly due to the bullying from your clan brother, Zhang Yisheng. To change this situation, there is indeed a way, that is to leave the Zhang family and experience the vast world. Gigi calculated the time. This was exactly when Zhang Li was about to leave the Zhang family, so this wasn't wrong to say. However, after this, you will encounter greater misfortune and be faced with life or death crisis. To resolve this, there is only one method. What is it? Advance the misfortune. Gigi explained. Which means, a person's misfortune is predetermined. It won't increase or decrease, nor can it be evaded. If you want to resolve future misfortunes, you must suffer now. For example, let me beat you up. He then quickly added, don't misunderstand, it's not that I truly want to beat you, this is just an unavoidable method. Please understand. Gigi feigned a look of I'm doing this for your own good, it was very persuasive. He wanted Zhang Li to willingly take a beating. Zhang Li shook his head. It seems that Taoist priest skills are limited. You did not see my trouble. I have already decided to leave the Zhang family and have even packed the traveling money. What troubles me is who will be the future's number one. Although he didn't understand why Zhang Li had such a question, Gigi honestly said. I heard that there is a genius emerged from a humble family in the Tianyuan Emperor dynasty, named Yu Yin. His eyebrows are full of killing intent, he's decisive in killing and fighting, unmatched in combat skills. He is a born warrior, undefeated since the day he made his name, dominating among his peers. Zhang Li shook his head. Being overly rigid leads to brittleness. His mouth is harder than his body. He's not worth considering. I've heard that the Tao sect's sect master has accepted a new disciple, named Bai Hongtu. At a young age, he has shown cultivation talent far beyond his predecessors. He is likely to become the representative of the Tao sect and possibly reach the Transcendence Tribulation stage in the future. Zhang Li continued to shake his head. He has grand schemes on his mind but is just like a blank sheet of paper. I can tell he's not a serious person just by his name. Gigi was becoming a bit impatient. If this kid keeps bothering him, he might as well just give him a good beating. Then who, in your opinion, will be the future's number one? Zhang Li finished the last sugar-coated ha delightfully, licking the sugar residuals from the corner of his mouth, transforming back into a young man. Of course, it's me. And you, Gigi, who could cross the long river of time to fight me? The two of us should be considered as the future's number one. Gigi was taken aback upon hearing his words. As thunder rumbled and heavy rain poured, Gigi was so frightened that he dropped the Bagua flag. Zhang Li picked up the Bagua flag with a smile. What's the matter? Future's number one, Gigi, is so cowardly. Gigi gave an apologetic smile. I was born timid, afraid of thunder. Just now, I was scared by the thunder and dropped the flag. Chapter 719. I, Zhang Li, never hold grudges. You, how could you be here? Gigi was scared and shivering. Seeing Zhang Li here was scarier than seeing a ghost. Great rain was pouring, bringing a chill to Qingchang. Now, the chill in Gigi's heart was more than just a little. I have already said it, what difficulty does the insignificant way of time present to me? Do you think that I am moving freely on the river of time by brute force? Zhang Li patted Gigi's shoulder, and comforted, relax, we are all classmates, I won't hurt you. I don't have a good memory, you see, you told Bai Hongtu that I was impersonating a disciple of Tao sect 12 years ago, I almost forgot it. And you wrote in every book about the way of time on the first page, Brother Zhang, don't bother reading, you won't be able to learn it. I also almost forgot about this. Gigi shivered even more after listening, he feared that his blood would stain the river of time today. This ancestral blessing didn't help at all. Zhang Li put up a light screen, blocking the heavy rain outside, leisurely took out a small book, and crossed off Gigi's name. Zhang Li put away the small book, stretched out lazily, and swinging his arms, it's time to settle our old and new grievances, comrade Gigi. Gigi was trembling. Didn't you say that you have a bad memory? Zhang Li grinned, revealing his 8 teeth in a smile, and neared Gigi. Did I? I have poor memory, I forgot what I said earlier. Gigi was scared and kept retreating. Don't mess around, this is Great Zhou, attacking people is illegal. Can the Great Zhou control the people from the future? In the rain curtain, a scream from the Ji family could be heard. The screams were quickly drowned by the sound of heavy rain, as if there was never a scream. When the rain stopped, Gigi, who was covered in wounds, took the big return to life pill, and his body recovered to its original state. He incoherently started to chat with Zhongli. Considering the time, I am probably still in the palace at this time, being forced by the emperor to study, hoping that I could enter the Great Zhou Royal Academy with the result of being the top student. I thought I could be the top student, but unexpectedly, you suddenly appeared and became the top student. I could never surpass you until graduation. Where is the you of this era now? Zhongli pondered. I should still be looking for a sect willing to take me in. With your talent, there is no need to worry about not being taken in by sects. Oh right, you have the 5 elements spiritual route now. It's rare to come to this era. Shall we go see what the you of this era is doing right now? Sounds good. The two quickly found young Zhongli. They flew in the sky, hiding their figures. With Zhongli there, nobody in this era would discover the two of them. Young Zhongli just came to the 9 states continent. He got a general idea from the books, but it was still not enough. To be able to stand in the unknown world, knowledge storage is a must. He chose to go to the nearest sect from Qingcheng, Huayan sect. Young Zhongli was thinking, in recent years, the Huayan sect was gradually declining, they needed fresh blood, it suited him perfectly. However, no matter how weak Huayan sect was, they would never accept someone with a 5-element spiritual root. Young Zhongli wasn't discouraged, since he couldn't become a disciple of Huayan sect, he will find another way. Young Zhongli settled at the foot of the Huayan sect mountain, inquiring about Huayan sect's situation from the local inhabitants. It seems that the finance of Huayan sect is having a problem, tough to earn money, causing people to panic. Understanding the problem, young Zhongli started collecting information, helping Huayan sect to find ways to make money. After 20 days, the sect leader of Huayan sect came down from the mountain, coincidentally meeting young Zhongli who had been waiting for a while. Young Zhongli's methods caught the attention of the sect leader of Huayan sect. The sect leader of Huayan sect felt that young Zhongli has a young face, but his behavior and speech were more mature than his peers. He must be extraordinary. Anyhow, the situation of Huayan sect couldn't get any worse, so it was not a problem to let him try in Huayan sect. At first, the people of Huayan sect saw Zhongli as young and didn't want to follow his orders. The one who admonished him the most was someone from the line of the eldest elder. The sect leader forcefully argued against the opposition, letting young Zhongli take charge of Huayan sect's finance. Young Zhongli thrived here, forming a rather crude industrial chain. Huayan sect finally revived from being stagnant water, and the financial pressure significantly decreased. Everyone benefited and started to trust and respect young Zhongli. The eldest elder lowered his attitude, making peace with young Zhongli. Young Zhongli never cared about the matters of the eldest elder. He came to Huayan sect for cultivation, not to create grudges. Since he never created enmity, how could there be mention of making peace? The eldest elder felt that the kid in front of him was broad-minded. He would certainly become a great person in the future, thus he admired him even more. I have a grandson named Yunbo. He became famous at a young age, but he is arrogant. I have advised him several times, but he never listens. The oldest elder hoped that young Zhongli would intervene. This isn't difficult. Young Zhongli quickly thought of a method, letting the eldest elder fake his death. Yunbo's biggest pillar disappeared, people no longer pampered him. Yunbo experienced the cold and warmth of human relationships, rectifying his previous behavior, and focused on cultivation. After this matter, everyone in Huayan sect respected young Zhongli. Young Zhongli settled down in Huayan sect with peace of mind. He witnessed how a cultivator was in person here, which fulfilled all his fantasies. He began to have the desire to write something. He took out a notebook, and wrote down his fantasy story. The young man experienced all kinds of hardships and finally becomes royalty of 9 states. The young man held the woman he loved, antagonizing 9 states. One transcendence tribulation stage cultivator shouted, saying no matter how strong the young man was, how could he dare to antagonize 9 states, and quickly hand over the demon woman. The young man got up slowly and said coldly, "You insects, dare to provoke the wrath of heaven and be my enemy. Let me give you death, it is your privilege." Zhongli in the sky covered his face, wishing he could strangle his past self. Suddenly, Zhongli remembered Gigi next to him. Although the fantasy story was written in modern language and no one could understand it besides himself, just in case Gigi could decipher it. "Emperor Shun, come down to pick someone up." Zhongli quickly asked Emperor Shun to take Gigi away. Gigi was held by the collar by Emperor Shun and brought to the river of time, not understanding what had just happened. "Don't look at what you shouldn't, be careful of being silenced." Emperor Shun warned Gigi, and sent Gigi back to his original point in time. Young Zhongli started listening to the sect elder's explanation about cultivation knowledge, thinking about the path he would take in the future. The sect elder felt that Zhongli was unusual. He couldn't delay his life in Huayan sect and suggested him to further his studies at the Great Zhou Royal Academy. Seeing this, Zhongli no longer wanted to watch. What followed was going out and encountering danger, burning the spiritual root, awakening the sky spirit root, attending the Great Zhou Dynasty Family College, encountering the 4th Prince Jiji, and officially starting the cultivation journey. Let's see what Bai Hongtu and Yu Yin are up to. Zhongli showed an interested smile. Chapter 720, Old Friends and Old Places. Zhongli first arrived in the sky above the Emperor of Heaven Origin City. At that time, Yu Yin had reached the foundation establishment stage, undefeated amongst her peers, causing quite a stir in the city. Yu Yin, in her sturdy outfit and full of pride, stood on the fighting stage, leaving no one daring enough to oppose her. Her parents wanted to find a suitable husband for her, but Yu Yin declared that she would never marry anyone weaker than her. So, they built a martial arts platform for a tournament to determine her suitor. Yu Yin's indifferent demeanor drew the attention of many distinguished young men from the imperial city, all of whom desired her. Unfortunately, none of them succeeded. Yu Yin was simply unbeatable. She looked down at the crying nobles on the ground with passionless eyes, snorted coldly, and muttered, "A bunch of trash." The royal family took notice of Yu Yin, seeing her potential to become the human emperor, and suggested her as a candidate for crown princess consort. Faced with pressure from both her family and the royal family, Yu Yin had no choice but to compromise and agree. "I'm focused on pursuing Dao. I don't wish to let emotional matters distract me. You gave birth to me, and I should repay you. So I agree, but I have one condition." Without hesitation, Yu Yin's parents said, "We agree." They had already received wealth and prosperity from the royal family for a lifetime. Their daughter becoming a crown princess consort could elevate their status instantaneously. They wouldn't just agree to one condition, they would agree to 10. "I want to sever ties with you, whether you are in wealth or poverty, it has nothing to do with me." Without thinking, Yu Yin's parents agreed at once. And what if they agreed? They were still Yu Yin's biological parents. Surely, they could still turn to her if they ever encountered any trouble. What they didn't expect was that Yu Yin truly didn't care. Yu Yin married the crown prince, however, she never consummated their marriage. "I am not one of the Union sect's disciples, leaking of my Yuan Yin element could be detrimental to my cultivation. If you wish for me to become human emperor, do not disturb my cultivation." The crown prince was infuriated by Yu Yin's aloofness. He knew her words were true, but he couldn't bear the humiliation of not being able to lay a hand on such a beauty. He was often found lashing out at Yu Yin. He was older than Yu Yin and had higher cultivation. Yu Yin knew resistance would be futile, hence endured silently. Zhongli sighed. Yu Yin had not spoken much about these matters, perhaps these memories weren't pleasant and felt burdensome to recall. Zhongli decided to bury all those things he'd witnessed in his heart, pretending he knew nothing about them. Selling swords, selling swords. Top quality spirit swords, don't miss out. Bai Hongtu, the member of the Dao sect, had set up a shop at the Taoist market, vigorously hawking his spirit swords. "Senior brother Bai, are you selling swords?" a Dao sect disciple asked, noticing that Bai Hongtu's stall was empty, with no swords in sight. Bai Hongtu confidently replied, "This, you don't understand. The sword monarch, the #1 person in the sword Dao of the 9 states, once said, a sword cultivator should have no sword in hand, but a sword in the heart. The swords I sell are invisible. Of course, it's not literally that there are no swords, but only those with natural talents in sword Dao can see them. Come, feel it, is there a sword?" Following Bai Hongtu's suggestion, the Dao sect disciple reached out into the empty space, and of course, felt nothing. However, he was reluctant to admit that he lacked talent in sword Dao and asserted that there was indeed a sword there. "How about it, do you want this sword? If you help me clean the teacher's yard, I'll sell you this invisible sword." The Dao sect disciple hesitated. If he could obtain this sword, would he gain enlightenment about having, no sword in hand, but a sword in the heart? Thud, someone knocked Bai Hongtu on the head. "Hongtu, you're fooling people again. Hurry back and clean up the yard." The sect master of the Dao sect was a middle-aged man with a wild appearance, full-faced beard, and round eyes. "But master, cleaning the yard is really boring," Bai Hongtu complained. The sect master glared at him. "I told you to clean the yard to understand that anything can be a sword, including a broom. Once you've accomplished that, you will reach the realm where everything can become a sword. Now go quickly." "Oh," Bai Hongtu pouted, reluctantly cleaning the yard for his master. Zhang Li shook his head and chuckled, finding it amusing that Bai Hongtu could be so obedient. Zhang Li then arrived at the imperial palace. The old human emperor was in his prime, without any hint of his later injuries. The old human emperor and Commander Lu were discussing whether or not to open the human emperor selection process as a precautionary measure. The old human emperor shut his eyes and absorbed the messages from the earth pulse. Not yet. The current generation of cultivators at the nascent soul stage is superficially strong but weak at the core. Very few of them are truly competent. The earth pulse is telling me to wait a few more years until the younger generation of chi cultivation and foundation establishment stage grow up. That would truly be the golden era of the 9 states. The candidates for human emperor chosen from these people will be the most formidable, even stronger than me. Stronger than the Hall Master. Commander Lu was shocked. Lu Yu's talent could rank among the top 5 among all human emperors, yet the next human emperor could be stronger than him. Would that then be on par with the first-generation emperor? In the subsequent months, Zhang Li traveled across the land of the 9 states, visiting old acquaintances, returning to familiar places, reminiscing the past. The pure heart holy maiden back then was nothing more than an exceptional disciple of the red dust holy land, diligently cultivating to become the holy maiden. Dong Zongren, who was the same age as Bai Hongtu, was chanting the Confucian classics, expressing his disagreements with the elder's views, arguing strongly for his interpretation. The immortal elder Cheng Kun locked himself in the ceiling self-cave, trying to perfect the establishment of the outer world heavenly demon, aiming to make it seamless. He worried covertly about what the 9 serene deep grounds would do if heavenly immortals were sent here by the immortal realm. The old Buddha of Sumeru was preaching Dharma, promoting Buddhist law. Lotus flowers were falling from the sky and sprouting from the ground. The spectacle was regarded as a miracle. Li Er hadn't married yet. He was having such a good time in the White Marsh Empire that he forgot he was the sect master of the body incorporating sect. White Snow Spirit was stuck between the White Marsh bloodline and the Kylan bloodline. She was searching for a way to separate the two and vex the 8 vassals of the White Marsh Empire for ignoring imperial orders and claiming sovereignty. The emperors of Dream River and Wei were still princes. The two met at the Union sect, they became close friends. Sword Monarch was trapped in the Sword Tomb, his body taken over by the Heart Demon. He stubbornly refused to ask the outside world for help. Many things have changed in the past 500 years. Zhang Li looked up to the sky, feeling extremely sentimental. I should go back. Zhang Li let Emperor Shun take him back. Emperor Shun seemed to have known in advance that Zhang Li would choose this moment to return. After he sent Ji back, he rowed his boat to the spot a few months later to pick up Zhang Li. Several months had passed since Zhang Li last saw Emperor Shun, but from Emperor Shun's perspective, he had just seen him. Emperor Shun seldom left the river of time to socialize with people. The incongruity of their time perspectives was one of the reasons. How do you feel, Zhang Emperor? Zhang Li didn't say anything, but simply laughed. His feelings were too comprehensive to be expressed in just a few words. I know that you've been looking for a way to reach the parallel world. Coincidentally, I have one now. Emperor Shun smiled.